The FNRad Snowboard podcast is sponsored by Wired Snowboards from Vancouver, BC. We recorded this episode at the Wired factory where they make amazing snowboards. Check out wiredsnowboards.com and order yourself a custom graphic hand-built board. Support also comes from Anon Goggles, Dakine, Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC, Van Snowboarding Boots, Crow's Nest Barbershops, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, and Grouse Mountain. This weekend at Grouse is the Office Boys Coffee and Donuts Bank Slalom event. The 100 competitor spots filled up fast, and the winner of this year's event gets a season's pass at Grouse that's good for the rest of this year and next year too. Vancouver listeners, come watch the event and enjoy free coffee and donuts from Harmony Donuts on Lonsdale up at Grouse Mountain this Saturday, March 23rd from 10:30 to 4. See you all there.
It was a totally fun time, didn't get too gnarly.
I kind of look at the Mystery Air as an improved evolution of the Switchblade.
Snowboarding is ours.
And obviously I like working with Burton.
As an old school snowboarder, you get so used to being treated as a second-class citizen.
And I was like, how do you spell your last name? He said Kelly. And I was like, oh, we should get married. And he's like, no, too symmetrical.
This week's guest is Scott Serfas, who's an iconic snowboarding photographer based out of Whistler, BC. His photos have graced the cover of Transworld Snowboarding more times than anyone else's, and you can see some of his most recognized work on his Instagram at Scott Serfas. I was super stoked to finally get to interview this legendary photographer.
Me?
Yeah.
Toast and Hannah 1.
Oh, you're a Hannah 1 guy.
I'm liking it, yeah.
Yeah, my buddy Dustin Varga was posting about that for years.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of have it in the back of my brain subliminally.
Yeah.
But Sheen Campos was talking about it.
Yeah, he met the owner.
Yeah.
I think he was in Whistler or something like that.
Yeah. What the hell is it? It's some sort of like acai berry or something?
No. It's something like 30 plant-based ingredients of something or other. I'm not.
Yeah, it's like
I shouldn't even really speak of it. Right. I'm not like
It's like a package you open, you pour it in your thing, you mix it up, and that's your breakfast.
No. The Hannah 1 it's like a black paste, almost like black paste, and I just put it on toast with coconut oil.
Nice.
I mean, it's apparently absorbs better when you have. Like a natural fat, but I think it's got it in there anyway, so you don't necessarily need it, but it tastes pretty good with the coconut oil.
Right. So I was thinking today on the way over, how big of a relationship, like how big of a part in my life magazines actually played, right? Like, because when I was a kid, it was just kind of happenstance that my parents bought me a BMX bike. It was like 70% off at Sears. So I got a Hutch Trickstar, which then I was like the kid in the neighborhood with the like fucking real BMX bike. So I got a subscription to BMX Plus that Christmas. Yeah. And the format of that magazine was something new. You know what I mean? Like it like to me, before that a magazine was like you're going on a trip with your parents, you get a Mad magazine and you're just like laughing and looking at cartoons.
Right.
BMX Plus had a cartoon in it, that Radical Rick cartoon.
Rick, yeah.
And then it had, editorial shots. So it was like you would see what people were riding, their setups and that kind of shit, which you just knew instinctively, like that's what pros ride.
Right.
And then there would be ads and you'd be looking through like, oh, what do I want? Then there'd be like product reviews and you'd be like, I think I want an Odyssey gyro or like those ODI mushroom grips or whatever.
Yeah.
But more than anything, it was painted this reality of like a place where everyone wore Vans and said, hey, dude. And I think it was California. You know what I mean? Like it felt like, oh, I want to go there.
Yeah.
And I want to have those things. I want to be a part of this group.
What year would that be?
87, 86, 87.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think I was buying BMX magazines maybe a little bit earlier than that. But it was all more race oriented.
Like Gary Ellis and those guys. And
I remember always wanting a Hutch.
Yeah.
And I was so close to getting the Bear Trap pedals. Remember those?
Yeah. I do.
And this guy was going to sell them to me, and then I don't know, something fell through. I was so bummed because I never got the real BMX bike. I had like the rip off.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kit it out with like a couple real parts.
Totally.
And I could get these pedals for cheap, and then, it didn't work. So
What do we got?
So
What's that
bummed.
hissing?
It should be another 10
Oh, okay, perfect. Oh, that's all good. Just keep it going, man. We like the hissing.
There's cockroaches in
It's
here.
like we're getting attacked by snakes. So it goes pretty quickly for me from BMX to the BMX scooter, which I talked about in with
do you think Johnson really
Johnson.
had one? Or do you think he was just trying to make you feel good?
He might have. He knew that they bent, and you would only know that if you had one.
Yeah, see, I
They
definitely never had one of those.
But good for you.
But,
so
but Vans, I want to get on to talk about that, because that's an interesting one, because so growing up just outside of North Delta, or outside of Vancouver in North Delta, I guess if you're an American, you don't realize this, but it's really hard for us to get anything in Canada, right? It's, obviously there's no internet, and you're 12 years old, like finding out places, right, to get stuff, or,
right?
Music and anything, right? It was just very, very difficult. And somehow I knew about Vans somehow, and I think it was before Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which was maybe what made them ultra cool.
It was a part of it for sure.
And I believe it was before then. I'm not sure exactly how I heard about them, or how I knew I wanted a pair. Maybe it was BMX, but somehow I found out that you could get them at Country Boots, which is a shop in Bellingham.
Rad.
So for anyone that doesn't know Bellingham, that's at Bellis Fair Mall. It had just opened, and it's it's in the United States, and near the border. So it's like 45 minutes. But 45 minutes over the border when you're 12 is, that's a long ways away, right?
Yeah.
So, went on vacation somewhere around there one year and got to go there. So walking in the mall to Country Boots, it's a cowboy boot store, and a little display of these Vans shoes.
What did you get? Slip-ons?
I got blue and white checkered slip-ons.
That's epic.
It had the checkered in the front and the back, and then along the tread, right? I think they're making them now again with them along the sole, and they never made that. When Vans came back remaking those, they never did the checkered. What do you call that? Like the edge of the sole.
What did they call it? There's a name for it. I'm gapping on it right now, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it must have been BMX that got me into it, because I remember riding those with my BMX bike, and thinking too, because if you look at the tread on the bottom, there was a spot
for the pedal.
For the pedal, that's what I always thought. I don't know if that is, because
obviously, yeah.
But off the wall is, I think it never was it worked for BMX, but it was always a skateboard shoe.
Right.
So why is that there in the?
You know
shoe?
what?
I don't know.
Well, we have to call and ask.
At that time, I thought
Steve
it was
Van
like,
Dorn
this
would know.
is for BMX.
Yeah. Me too.
But thinking about it,
I remember
it's
hearing
a skateboard shoe.
that they were tennis shoes. So Steve Van Dorn's dad, was it his dad or his uncle? I can't remember. Or his grandfather started the company, and they were tennis shoes, and then the BMXers got onto them. My first pair, my parents bought me in Paris, France, and they were classics with the lace up, low tops, blue on the toe, gray in between,
right,
and just like. I remember they were $100 American.
Really?
$100.
Are you
bucks.
sure?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it
sure they weren't 10, and you were just so young that you thought that was 100.
No, they were way more expensive than, because you could get them in Toronto at that time. You just couldn't. At the first, I remember there were the checkerboard ones. They were almost like they weren't cool anymore. Like those were like mid 80s,
right?
And like you wanted like what was in the magazines now, which weren't checkerboard.
Okay,
they were going away from them. So I remember convincing my parents, and it was like a big deal. And I came back to my BMX friends, and funnily enough, BMX Plus, I sent them a letter that was the most corny letter, and they edited it, thankfully.
And they printed it.
And they printed it.
No way.
And it was my friends are stealing wood to build a ramp. I really want to ride the ramp, but I don't want to be a thief.
Right.
And then there was about 2 pages of Donnie Kent can do a Miami hopper, and so-and-so can do an endo, and this guy can bunny hop. And it was like, and this is my whole crew.
Yeah.
So they just printed the stealing wood part, and then they replied saying, like, never steal, it's a terrible idea.
Right.
But by the time they'd printed it, I'd stolen so much wood
Right.
with these guys. Like, I was just full in. And also, it reminded me that ramp got the attention of the city. They sent out someone from the newspaper. There was a picture of me on my scooter on the ramp, and the ramp was sheeted with a sign from a billboard like 100 meters away from the ramp, right? Like they had disassembled the billboard and painted over like with white house paint, so you could still see the bleed through of the sign that we stole from. It was such a crazy time. It was, but that was really a big influence on me, was magazines.
Yeah.
So it reminded me, and I haven't thought of this until today. I used to go to the grocery store and ask the clerks, like, when does the buyer's guide come out for Transworld? And they would be like, what are you fucking talking about? As if we would know the schedule of magazines.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I'm buying them here. Like,
yeah.
And then that was like cover to cover. What was your relationship
that kind of
with
goes back
magazines?
to, like I said, with living in Canada, is that you're so disconnected from really what was happening that's all you had.
Yes.
You know, that or a movie that came out, 9 months later, that kind of thing. And I mean, like my early memories of magazines, it would be wanting to know what the new cool trick is. You know, because when you're 10 or 12, even 17, you're just copying what's happening in the movies or in the magazines. Totally. And that would always be my biggest thing when I'd open a magazine and see the new grabs or new tricks or whatever it was they were doing. And then it came to a point where the magazines came out and on the cover was like a shifty late 180, when that was cool, right?
Yeah.
But we were doing them that summer or that spring. We'd go hiking Baker or Seymour. Yeah. And that's what we were doing, which was kind of, it was a kind of a transition part where we're like, we're doing what, you know what I mean? It was like, they weren't so far ahead of what the kids we were doing. So
I remember even in skateboarding, there was just some random dude who was not a great skateboarder who had learned to do kickflips on carpet, like just at his house. And then he came out to the parking lot we were skating, did a kickflip, and then all of us had to learn kickflips. But that was like literally what was going on in the magazines at that time. Like you felt like I'm like just a little below what's going on. Yeah. And then maybe 2 years later, it was, I'm still kickflipping, and now they're kickflipping off the side of a 12-foot ramp
insane.
or something.
I still my first skateboard it was more carving. Like carving, bombing hills and turning. And
wow.
How do you do that? Like, learning to ollie was definitely there, but, wall rides, that kind of stuff.
Wall rides, totally. Yeah, there was no accessible vert ramps for us, so like vert was just kind of off the table. Sort of the same.
I made a quarter pipe.
Did
that
you?
Might as well have been a vert ramp. It was insane. It was one sheet of plywood, so 4x8 with like the tightest transition. It was probably 2 feet of vert.
I love that.
And it was like what you said, like just stolen wood. Had it on the street in front of the house.
Yeah,
I mean, it was terrifying just getting halfway up that thing because it was so quick. And like I said, we went from like literally learning to make turns, bombing hills. Yeah, just figuring out, sort of your trucks and how loose they were, so that you didn't get the speed wobbles and just completely eat shit. But halfway down the hill. So from that to trying to even, make it up this quarter pipe that was so ridiculous, so ridiculous. It was, I don't know, 6 feet tall, I guess. Yeah. With an 8-foot sheet of plywood, so you can just imagine how quick that
just bent, and then to vert.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, we had launch ramps that were like, people would build bigger and bigger launch ramps. There was a guy, Justin, he built a ramp that was probably 4 feet high. So you're just like going 4 feet to flat. And like everybody's hitting it. You're going as fast as you can. You're watching people get hamburgered.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like guys like limping home to like go wash out their cuts.
Yeah.
And, you know, you'd early grab and just land flat. And there was just no... I remember the first snowboard jumps that we built. I argued with the guys, like, why are you building them in the hill? They should be at the end of the hill where you're kind of... You got your most speed, then you jump in the air, then you stop.
Yeah.
Like it's a jump to flat to stop, right? And they're like, no, you idiot. You need to land on a downhill. And I was like... But then you're out of control. Like, what are you talking about? There was like a debate at the, like, you know, toboggan hill.
Right.
No, don't build it there. That's a dumb spot for a jump. But yeah, there was. I love the idea that you could look in the magazines and even the early videos, those first Totally Bored series. I can remember thinking, oh, if I just went to Alaska, I'd be doing that. Obviously. Like, we would be as good as these guys if we just got to go where they're going.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing about riding in Alaska is it does not translate, you know, when you see photos or video of it, right? You have no idea until you stand on top of a peak and look down and all you see is 3 feet in front of you.
Yeah.
And the bottom valley. And you're like, what's down there? You're like, I don't know, go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't avalanche, and hopefully it's not 1,000-foot cliff. And
it's insane.
It's
when I moved out here,
they're just turning. Big deal. I can turn.
Yeah. David Benedict said it that on his first trip to New Zealand. I think he went with Sheen and he went with some guys, and he was expecting at 18 years old to really school them.
Yeah.
Like they're going to be surprised at how good I am.
Yeah.
And then it was the opposite. He was like, holy shit, these guys are so good.
Yeah.
I had that even with you guys. Like, so I was one of those kind of like peripheral hang around. Oh, hey guys, like, where are you going today? And you guys would be like, we're going that way. And then
they go the other way.
Yeah, totally. But you know, I rode with Devun, Roberta, and Dow in Montana the first year I was out here. Mm-hmm. And you just kind of climatized to the speed that they were riding. And then I separated from the group and went with these guys from Hawaii that were doing Ice Age snowboards, and they were with Rob Gracie. And then Rob Gracie said to them, like, oh, this guy rides really fast, and his line selection's really good because it was Devun had picked the speed line that we were riding.
Right.
So I took these guys to Devon's speed line, hit the jumps, and then Gracie was like, you should probably put this guy on the team. He's got like a good eye for hits.
Right. There's a few people that got hooked up following Devun around.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't think that translated either. I think people get that he's amazing, but like before he was even hooked up, you could see that he had something that other people didn't have, you know?
Yeah.
And actually that Gracie story, really, that was a transition for me in magazine understanding, because Rob Gracie either told me or because I'd shot photos with him, I watched for his name in the magazine, and he had a really good relationship with Jimmy Scott. Mm-hmm. So then you look and you go, wait, every Jimmy Scott shot is a Rob Gracie shot. Rob Gracie is being paid by the magazines, and so maybe Jimmy knows if I go with Rob, I get in the magazines. Or maybe Rob knows Jimmy's this great guy, and his style is good and translates well, so I'm going to shoot with him and get money by shooting with this guy.
Well, I think it's always kind of been that, you know. I mean, my starting days were shooting guys that I was just riding with. They weren't anyone special.
Right.
They were Devun, right?
Yeah.
They were Dow. There was Sansalone. You know, there was early stages of these guys' career, early stages of my career, where I would ride for a bit and then take a couple shots because I always liked looking at, you know, what we all look like in the air.
Yeah.
And then they get a sponsor here and a sponsor there, and, you know, they're like, well, this guy's got shots of me, you know, so then it works out for me, and then, yeah, it's just sort of this give and take kind of thing that just evolved organically, right?
Right.
So
right. And before meeting Rob Gracie, I don't know what I thought, but it was something along the lines of the magazine is just like a video camera in the sky, or a camera in the sky that's capturing exactly what's happening in BMX or exactly what's happening in skateboarding.
Or they would hear that person is the best, so we're going to send our photographer
Here
and
comes,
shoot just that guy. But it's not always that's not, I mean, that does happen, but that's not always the case. That could be someone shooting their friend and they just get a good shot and it works out.
Yeah, like Jimmy Scott knowing Rob Gracie, and they live next to each other, and what are you doing today? Let's go shoot in the pipe. Yeah. And then next thing you know, so my next exposure to that was sitting in a Transworld meeting where it was either the managing editor, Lee Crane probably.
Mm-hmm. Could have been.
Just saying to a group of people, including the owner of Radical Airline Snowboards. Yeah. Listen, here's how it works. Pick one of our staff photographers, look at that page in the magazine, and contact one of those guys. I've got all their numbers. You'd ask me, you pick one that's close to you, send him out, pay his day rate, get him to shoot your guys, use his photos for the ads that you're buying in our magazine, and the rest of the shots, he'll just like send them to us. And then once you've got an ad in the magazine, then we'll put some editorial in there to support like your guys. Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck did I just hear? Like, it was like, no, that can't be the way that it's done. I remember leaving that thing being like, it's tainted. It's terrible. This is not right.
Yeah. I like that brings back memories too of getting, I think it was faxes back then, but it was a list of companies and the team manager and phone numbers to call and say, look, these are the guys that, have athletes we're shooting. Call them. And I know that they were getting the same thing, because I get phone calls. Hey, I got your number from Transworld. Right. We're going to go on a trip. We were hoping you could come.
That's amazing. And what's your day rate? And how does this work? Like, figuring it out.
Yeah. And I don't even remember what I would have said back then, because I was still figuring it out myself
let's
too,
go right to the beginning. So, like, you're working at NFA when you get your first camera, or did you?
No. That was years later.
Oh, wow. So you already had a passion for photography, and then skateboarding.
Yeah, I did, but I didn't. I don't think I really. I did in the sense that I wanted to build like a scrapbook of me and friends that I was riding with. Yes. To look at. Yeah. So it started when I was in high school. Okay. Skateboarding and skiing at the time.
Yeah, you would take ski shots as well?
Of us.
Rad.
Yeah, but it wasn't like I'm going to get good at this because there's a future.
Right. It was like you're the guy with the camera.
4 pro skiers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, in the world. There was one photographer or 2 maybe.
Sure.
And that was their job. I mean, I'm not going after that job. That's just
you wanted to make a
crazy.
scrapbook.
I still have a picture on like skiing on Whistler.
I love that.
In 85 or whatever it was, right?
Rad.
And then just getting the shots back, it was a point and shoot camera, right? So it was working on the timing of the shot and making them look big, because that was the whole thing. We want to see our style and want to see who can go the biggest, right? Yeah. And then so I'd take a couple shots, hand it to my buddy, I'd hit the jump, get some shots, and then we'd build this thing of our weekend in Whistler or whatever. And then started snowboarding. It was just basically the same kind of thing, right? I think I evolved from I would have shot with a point and shoot still at that time, and then eventually evolved into my dad's Foley manual, like Minolta kind of camera, and sort of figure it out. But at that time, I'm shooting print film that I'm just getting from the like the drugstore, 24-hour kind of thing. And I remember a girl I went to high school with worked there, and she would always, either, I don't think she ever gave me the film, but she definitely didn't charge me when I picked up
for processing.
Oh, that's which sick. Obviously helps a ton, right? Because film's expensive, and then I think, just as a naive kid, I just took these prints and sent them to Transworld.
Wow.
Sent them to Concrete Powder. Sent them, basically, like looking through the masthead for the, I know my first submission, it was to John Foster at Transworld Snowboarding Magazine, Oceanside, California, and some 4x6 prints that were just run off a machine in a drugstore.
Yeah.
So maybe they're a little bit green, maybe they're blue, maybe, who knows, right? Because they don't adjust any of that stuff. It's just they run the same settings as the birthday party of the girl that dropped off the film before me, right?
Totally.
And obviously I never heard anything back. They probably just
so somewhere in some box somewhere there's this submission.
They would be in landfill.
In the garbage.
There's no way that they kept those going. Maybe he'll call and ask for them back. No, we're just probably look at another idiot. Right?
Yeah,
Throw 'em
sure.
in the garbage.
That's hilarious. Who would have been in those photos?
Devun.
Really?
Yeah, Dow.
Already at that point.
Yeah,
those were your guys.
Yeah.
At Mount Seymour, then?
No, I think we were shooting more on Blackcomb.
Oh, yeah. Before Whistler was a place that you would even think about going, right? We've talked about it in the show before. Blackcomb had this reputation because they'd opened a year earlier than Whistler.
For snowboarding,
yeah. Blackcomb was the only place you'd want to go.
Yeah. So there's a Blackcomb pipe. I'm trying to think of who else. So Devun and Alex Toporowski were the two guys that went to school together. Dow, who lived up there, Dan Wertel, who I think lived with Dow at the time, and he had a camera too. That was actually my first experience of a motor drive on a camera.
Rad.
I'd be like, you just hold a button down and it keeps going?
Yeah.
It was insane. And I would grab it and I would just hold it down, no filming, and just sitting on the couch, and I was like, this is, and then he'd look at me like, dude, I'm gonna have to buy new batteries, give that back, quit that. Right?
Yeah.
But I was so thrilled that you can shoot sequences and whatnot, and that's what I eventually saved up for, was a camera that.
What was that first camera that you saved up for and got?
That would have been a Canon EOS A2.
Cool.
I think it was a little plastic. It would shoot 4 or 5 frames a second, I think.
Yeah.
But back then, camera bodies didn't really matter,
right?
Because all it did is hold film. So as long as it didn't leak light, and it would have a motor drive. That's all you really needed, right?
Yeah, it was more about the lenses, especially, right?
The lenses and the film and the kind of film you use, right? Which then I eventually learned that print film is, you can still use it, but it wasn't ideal, I guess. Magazines and brands wanted slide film.
Slide film, right?
Yeah. Which is, for anyone that doesn't know, that's you have your negative with print film. Well, slide film is just positive. So, the actual negative, you look at it, is actually the photo. So if you screw it up, there's no real way to adjust it. That is what it is. So you get it out and it's overexposed, you throw it in the garbage. Underexposed, you throw it in the garbage. It's out of focus, you throw it in the garbage. There's no adjusting it. Where a negative, you can print it and change the colors a little bit, brighten it. It had a little bit more latitude.
Yeah.
Right, but...
you know what? In the beginning, when you first were submitting, and probably when you were first getting some traction as a photographer, I would ask you all this shit because I wanted to not...
You did ask me that?
I asked you all of it, and you were really, really nice. And you told me everything.
Everything that I knew.
I think I got an
Which is probably not much.
I think I got EOS, like a Elan 7E.
Yeah.
Which is just like a prosumer. You put the film in. It has the right mount for the EOS lenses. And, I think what you told me, which was the most helpful, was get a 50 mil portrait lens, the little plastic one that's it was $50 or something. Yeah. And 100 mil straight lens, and that's a really nice lens for just shooting at a good distance, and just shoot in good light. And it worked.
I'm kind of wondering why I told you that, because I wonder how long ago that was, because that's what I had when I was
25 years
from my dad's camera. So there was a 35, I think a 50, and there was probably a 200 or a 100 or something like what you were saying.
Yeah,
but when I figured out a little bit more, I was getting away from that. I was more like a zoom lens, right? 70 to 200, or I think my first one was an 80 to 200 as a black Canon one.
Yeah.
And then
you would have still been working at friggin' NFA
McDonald's
at that time. Or recently, I don't know how long you worked there. Did you work there?
That was probably a couple of years.
Yeah,
but that was in the late 90s, right?
that you worked there? No, that was like...
Was it mid-90s?
Early 90s, like 94 maybe, 94, 95.
Yeah, was it?
Those first NFA blockbusters were like 95 maybe.
Yeah, but I was after that when I worked there.
Okay, then it would have been...
I would have been shooting at the Blockbuster, but I don't think I was working there.
Okay, yeah. So
But-
it would have maybe been when you were a professional photographer. You were like probably the only professional photographer that I have had regular access to. And when I would see you, I'd be like, oh my God, okay, I've got this
here's my
lens
list of
70.
questions.
Yeah, this is... what aperture setting do you use in this certain light or whatever? You know what, I never really got it. I was not very good at just... I didn't have an eye for what it was. I would have to shoot 20 shots to maybe luckily get this like one lucky shot.
Yeah.
And so it was very expensive.
Yeah. That is, yeah.
But
I just imagine or thinking back to the amount of money I would have spent on, just black images or white images, just trial and error is how I learned, right? So you just, and then you also have that natural reflex to move the camera up.
Yep.
Or if you have a zoom lens, like you think the guy's going to hit you, so you kind of like, so you get the shot back and you've cut off his head or you've cut off the bottom of the shot.
Oh my God,
like
so many times.
You're like holding it, and then it's still you move it and it's like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Well, so you
crazy.
started getting published as a skateboard photographer before
my
snowboarding?
first photo ever published was a skateboard shot in concrete powder.
Rad. Who was it?
Ruben Cambeats.
I was gonna say Ruben's name in this thing because I remember, and
that was another guy that I shot with and rode with a lot at Blackcomb was Ruben.
Yeah,
and John Spence, Brad McGregor.
Oh, rad.
All those dudes.
Yeah, because I moved out here feeling like I was still really in magazine culture, so like I felt like I'd moved into concrete powder. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like you'd look around, you'd be like, "There's Ruben Cambeats." Like I know that guy from concrete powder.
Yeah.
There's Paul Culling. Oh my God.
Yeah.
He's like, he had a checkout last month or whatever. Like you would literally see people from the magazines and you go up to Blackcomb and it would just be, of the 20 guys that are in the park that day, 6 of them are like Mark Morissette, Chris Nichols. Like you would literally be inside a magazine. I was like, I moved into a magazine.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah, it was.
I mean,
so much
I owe a lot to concrete powder. That was just such a learning part for me, but it also gave. So when I started sending photos in there, it had gone from the glossy magazine to the newsprint. It was free.
Yep.
And it was the same thing. I was still shooting slide or print film right from the grocery store.
Yeah.
And sending it in there, and that's when I had the shot of Ruben. He was hauling a set of stairs, I think, and then I think I had a shot. Maybe it was Devun, something like that. Like the next issue, there's a shot of me that was in a subscribe page when I handed my camera to someone else.
Sick.
And then because it was a free magazine, that they just didn't have a lot of people there working,
right.
on the layout and that kind of stuff. So this guy Rich Newman was the ad sales for the magazine.
Yeah.
Would also do the layout, but he would bring in people to help with it, right? Whoever wanted to. Basically intern. So I'd started doing that and going in and helping with the layout, which was taking these prints, because that's what everybody else was shooting on as well, were just these prints and sort of moving around on a piece of paper and, it kind of looks cool here, and we'd tape it in there and we'd build this book. And then, I don't know, I think somebody after hours would be on some kind of, publishing program of some sort,
right?
Cork, something like that, whatever it was called, and then the magazine would come out. But it was from taping these things around. They're like, how about this shot? How about that? And we do this. And because I was in there, I could just start putting my own shots in.
Right.
Which
did it pay anything at that time?
Yeah, you'd get paid for your photos,
like $20 a shot or something, or a couple $100 a shot.
No, like $10, $5, $20, $20 maybe if it was a cover. I don't know. I honestly don't remember the real numbers, but it wasn't a lot.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But
yeah,
but I was getting shots.
It's a part of a community. And for listeners that don't know concrete powder, at some points it was halfway between a zine and a magazine. Like when it was it was like a giant format
Yeah,
newsprint.
yeah, that's when I first started there.
And then,
that's the stuff I was doing the layout with.
And
originally.
then it became like kind of a thinner, legitimate.
No, that magazine was before.
Magazine.
The Glossy
yeah,
magazine.
That's right.
I think they did one season. It was like 6 issues or 5 issues.
And it was pretty rad, but it probably was really expensive.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened. They went to the big, newspaper style.
And it was free
oversized.
in shops. So then I guess they paid for the production costs by selling ads.
Exactly. So it was brands or distributors of brands in Canada, skate shops, snowboard shops that were, in the area.
Yeah, it was a rad magazine.
Yeah, that was everything that we, that was ours for Canada, right? It was the only thing that represented Canada. So for me to be able to help with the layout, put my own shots in there, get friends published, get myself published.
Yeah.
That to the outside world, that just looks like I'm this photographer that knows what he's doing.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is, it gets the gears turning and I want to shoot with Scott because he's getting shots in concrete powder.
Right.
And then kind of evolves from there. And
where does Transworld come into the game? Like, this whole time, are you taking, and what was your etiquette around if something's being published in concrete powder? You can't, you only made one print. You can't send that to Transworld as well.
No, you can get 24-hour print. You get doubles. Right,
and then you would send one to...
No, because... Well, no, I probably did, actually. I probably did get doubles because... If there are shots of me, I'd want to keep them. If there are shots of friends, I'd give it to them.
Rad.
Or maybe we could submit this.
Yeah.
Print out a couple extras and we'll send. I mean, there wasn't an etiquette of, at least for me at that time, of not sending the same shot anywhere because nobody's going to print them anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, if Transworld's like, we're going to print this.
Yeah.
It would have been so... I was not thinking like, I might get double published, right? Like it was such a dream, right?
Yeah.
That
so
was never going to happen. You know what I mean? It was so far out there. They're like thinking of you better not show this to too many places because you're going to ruin your career. It's not like I was looking for a job. I was looking just to say that I got a shot in a magazine.
Totally.
Right? It was.
And what's the first
like
Transworld shot that you get?
Transworld skateboarding.
Sick.
Yeah.
With Rick?
No, with a guy named Mike Kirchhoff. He's, I'm not sure, he goes by the name Maiji, which is like, I think he produces music, hip-hop, DJ, that kind of stuff. So anyway, I went down to Portland, went to Burnside, and just cruising around, and I see this guy, that's him and Carl Hubble, and... say the two best skaters there at the time, and I'm like, hey, I got a camera from Canada, can I take some shots? So we shot a few things around Burnside, and then Mike's like, I've got this ledge that I want to shoot. You want to go check it out?
Right. And
so I shot a sequence of him nose sliding this brick ledge, and it's the funniest shot because the pants are so big, the wheels are so tiny. Like this is probably 93, 94, right?
Right.
I was still living at home. No, it must have been maybe 92. Anyway, send it to Transworld Skate, and I come home, and my mom's like, some guy named Grant Britton called you. He wants you to call him back. I mean, you could just imagine, he's not calling because he wants to know what the return address of the shitty photos I sent, right?
Right.
There's a reason, right?
Yeah.
So I was, just getting over that, comprehending that, get on the phone, hey. And he's like, we're going to do this article on up-and-coming photographers. We want to include this sequence of yours.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah, mind blown, right?
Yeah.
I think it turned out it was a full-page sequence, $200, glossy magazine, seen around the world.
Yeah.
My name in print. It was insane. Yeah.
So
that was the first, real, like international kind of.
And then did you have an in with him then? Were you sending more submissions?
So I'm sure I would keep sending stuff. But on the skateboard thing, that nothing really materialized at Transworld, but then it did later at Thrasher.
Right.
So I started working with Thrasher more, and I'm not sure exactly how that went. I think might have been Jody Morris was in Vancouver, and he was working for Thrasher.
Yeah.
And I met him through Concrete Powder because he was, his leftover skate stuff would go to Concrete Powder.
Right.
And then he moved over to Transworld, and it must have been, the door was open for someone, in Canada.
Rad.
Or Vancouver.
And
at least
who were
the
yeah, because at that time, is that like the new spot time, like downtown is going off, and you're seeing international exposure of Vancouver as a skateboard city.
Yeah, but maybe a little
guys?
bit before then. I mean, those spots were definitely being skated, but it wasn't, it was pre-Slam City Jam, right? And I think that's maybe what kicked off a lot of the pros coming here and really exposing the place. But I was shooting just a couple, just friends, some dudes out in White Rock, and just guys that we, would meet and be like, hey, you want to take a couple shots? That's a cool trick. Let's, do that. It wasn't any, you didn't, established pros.
Yeah,
or
you didn't
like
go and follow around established pros or show up somewhere that you knew they would be and be like, hey, Sluggo, how's it going? Mind if I take a couple of photos of you?
No, I did a couple of stupid things. I don't know if I really want to talk about it because it really,
of course you do.
Really embarrassing.
Yeah, I told everybody I rode a fucking scooter, dude.
The one I'm most embarrassed about is I'm downtown shooting this ledge, and Jody shows up, and this is before I even knew who Jody was.
Right.
With Tony Ferguson, and I know who Tony is just from magazines. I don't know him at all, and it's at nighttime, and shooting with flashes. And I've got a couple of flashes set up, and Jody sets up some stuff. And back then, it was all on these. You shoot on the peanut slaves, they're called. So basically, when the light would hit this slave, it would trigger yours. So you'd shoot a flash on your camera, and then it would trigger other flashes, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is my time to get a shot of Tony. I'm going to poach a shot. And then, of course, he skates up to the ledge. I shoot this photo, and all of Jody's flashes go off. And then he looks at me, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, don't shoot my dude. And I was just like, I had very little idea of what I was doing.
Right.
In photography. Didn't even realize that it's going to trigger his flashes too, and just completely fuck up the whole scene. But then, so I felt so stupid. I think I just packed up and rolled away and be like, fuck, I hope he doesn't know who I am or what my name is. So anyway, I to this day, I still don't know if I've never told anyone that story before. It's fucking so embarrassing. But then I saw that shot. I think it was Tony. It was a back tail, I think, and I'm pretty sure I saw it in maybe it might have been a Plan B ad or maybe in Transworld or something like that. But so anyway, that was my first interaction with seeing a real photographer with a real pro. At that time,
right,
getting shots, right?
And then did that plant it in your head like, oh shit, I should?
No, I think I just
you eked away,
curled up into a ball and like, fuck, I don't ever want to do that again.
So when does the relationship with Rick McCrank and Rick blowing up? When does that happen? A couple of years after that?
It would probably have been maybe right around that time or a little bit after, and.
Rick had just moved out here from Ottawa, is that right?
Yeah, he moved to Whistler to be a pro snowboarder.
Did he?
Yeah.
Wow, I never really knew that. I mean, I've heard it and I just forgot, but yeah.
Yeah. So he moved out, and then it was, I don't know if it was the summer before the season started, but he was skating the Whistler Bowl. And a buddy of mine's like, hey, you got to meet this kid or see this kid skating. He was doing... speedline switch, it's just skating the bowl like nobody else had ever seen before, and it's just mind-blowing, right? So Brad McGregor, the guy I went to high school with, and he was into filming. He got a video camera for Christmas and then came on a snowboard trip with me. It was the first time he learned to shoot, and then he's gone on to do tons of different things.
Yeah.
and he's still, I think he's working in Hollywood films and whatnot now.
Rad.
So he's like, you got to meet this kid. He's fucking killing it. So I go to the park one day. He's there, and I think Brad had set up like something like he come to the city and that shoot in the city. So I was going down to shoot with. Well, I was living in the city, so Rick came down and I picked him up and then went to a spot out in Tawasin with Moses. We were going to shoot something out there, shoot for the day, and so bring Rick down and beginning of the session, Moses is setting up a new board. Rick looks over at the board and he's like, "Fuck, that thing is way better than what I'm skating right now." So he's like, "Do you mind if I have that?" He's like, "Oh, cool." So he sets it up. And I shoot a few things of Moses. We go downtown to go to the new spot. And I shoot a photo of Rick on that board. He switch ollies the handrail at the new spot. And it's a cover of Concrete Powder. So my first shot I ever take of him on Moses' old board is this
amazing
cover of Rick. And Moses and I don't forget exactly who else was there. They're just looking at this kid going, who is this guy? You know, where did he come from? But, you know, it was just
his style was
naturally
so good,
talented.
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He was like
I
a
mean,
cat.
he still is. Yeah.
It was nuts. So that kind of what sort of started that, and then that was kind of around the time I got on with NFA and being a team manager there, and they started a skate team. We had Jeff Logan and Rick. Maybe a couple other guys, but we'd do some road trips, and I had started working with Thrasher at that time, and
when you say you started working with Thrasher, you'd submitted photos, and they were giving you assignments and stuff, or
so I don't remember exactly how it went, but like I said, Jody left. He was going to Transworld, and you know the door was open, and I don't know how I stepped in through that or how that exactly happened, but. You know, Jody might have given me a contact there and said, "Hey, you should talk to Bryce," or "Here's an address," mailed them some stuff, whatever it was.
Rad.
But I somehow it evolved to being a senior photographer on Thrasher.
Damn.
Them sending me film for free, paying them for the processing, going on trips. I believe that they were paid for.
Right.
I think. I mean, so long ago, but. And then I would send shots to them of Rick. I was also filming High 8 video as well, and Thrasher was doing video magazines or videos back in the day. So I'd send in this footage of Rick, and Bryce was just blown away, and he's like, "Who is this? What's the deal here? This kid's amazing." So he's like, "We want to blow him up. We want him to, We want to put him on the top, and we want him, to sort of break out in the industry through Thrasher. We want to put him on the cover, just keep shooting him." And so that's just kind of evolved. And we actually never did get a cover shot. The one shot they were going to put on the cover of Rick ended up being a center spread, which was obviously still
Rad.
cool.
Yeah. Did center spreads pay as much? Was there, in the hierarchy of photographers' pay, it's cover shot, center spread?
Well, center spread,
page.
it just back then, it was staple bound, right? It wasn't like the
yeah.
I don't know what you call it, the other way. But anyway,
lasted or whatever it is.
It was staple bound, so the opening thing you could turn it and pull it out, and it would be a poster, right? And it had Thrasher logo in the corner. So I don't think you got paid more for that. You got paid as a two-page
spread. Right, right.
So I don't know, it was probably $200, $150.
Would you think
like
about aspect when you're shooting? Like, oh fuck, I'd like to get a 2-page spread of this.
No, but a funny story. I remember Grant Britton telling me a story how he had this photographer that would send him photos, and they would always be horizontal.
Yeah,
but it never really fit, and he couldn't figure out why the guy would be shooting it horizontal when it doesn't make sense. And he, after a conversation with him, he told him it's because he wanted it to be a 2-page because he got paid more, which is quite funny. But no, I never thought of it. I never thought of it like that. It just
you took the shots.
For me, it was never to build a career, never to make money. It was, it was obviously nice, and you can keep doing it. But I wasn't, I wasn't.
In the Thrasher
planning ahead
days,
of
were you traveling around? Like, would you have to be in California a lot, or like other, like, I can't imagine being.
I don't think I had to. I wanted to.
Yeah.
Because it was, skateboarding in Vancouver was pretty small.
Right.
So I wanted to leverage that that relationship to meet and shoot other people. So there's definitely trips to California, San Francisco, that kind of stuff, meeting different people, and then when guys would come to Vancouver, it was a good way to say, hey, I work for Thrasher. Let's take some shots, right?
Fuck yeah.
Because
yeah. So that seems kind of in contrast to what would happen in that mid to late 90s with how much you shot at Mount Seymour and Blackcomb Whistler. Like, all of a sudden you can just sleep in your own bed and wake up in the morning, and if you got up at 7, you're ahead of everybody, and you guys would hike up the peaks.
We weren't getting up at 7.
Yeah, exactly.
We were going to bed at 7.
Yeah.
But there was no hiking up and beating people up there. Nobody else was there.
There was nobody there. There literally was no one else there.
No.
Yeah.
Like, nobody. I still remember the very first time we hiked in the backcountry, and Sansalone, I believe it was Sansalone, told a story that he had heard from some people that snowshoe around there that you can actually go out of bounds, and there's this big zone of rollers and whatever, and we should go check it out. And the first time we ever went out there was Kevin, Devun, and myself, and go to the top of the chair and you just hike straight up, and we just did that, and it was a sunny day, probably 2 feet of snow, like it was a killer day, boot packing ourselves, like nobody around, it was probably a Wednesday, 12 people maybe riding the chairlift, and nobody in the backcountry, all fresh, untracked. We'd hike for half an hour, and that's when we found the city booter, which
first day.
Yeah, which wasn't the city booter. There's no name. It was just this roll.
That's the first thing that you would come to. Yeah,
we're like, so you hike for a little bit, and then you go up this sort of steep little pitch, and you get to like a little plateau, and there's this landing, and you're like, fuck, we could just build a hit right here. Cool, let's do that. So we built that, and I'm shooting on the deck. Like, this is still 94, 95.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm still learning quite a bit. So wide angle lens, stand on the deck, they fly over me, right? This is awesome.
Yeah.
And then Devon's like, you should come up here and have a look at it from where we're dropping in.
Yeah.
He's like, okay. I hike up there and I turn around, look at the jump, and you can see the city. And I was like, holy shit. You guys are airing in front of the city. This is insane.
Yeah.
So for the rest of the session, I shot from up there. I remember Kevin doing big methods. Devun was doing frontside alley-oop, tail grabs, I think. I don't know, a bunch of different things. And then, nobody had seen snowboarding in front of a city before, right? Because mountains are in mountains. They're not in cities.
Yeah.
So this was this unique thing, and I'm like, I think I got a cover shot. This is insane. Sent it to Transworld. Now, I was shooting slide film at this time, so I'm, kind of learned a little bit. Sent it to Transworld, and that was my first shot in the Snowboard mag, and it's a full page of Kevin doing a method.
Sick.
Yeah, in a motocross jersey.
Oh, that
with the city in the background, right?
Amazing.
You can see the oil tankers or whatever the tankers out in the distance, and the high rises, and at that time, no one had seen anything. Really with a city in the background. So
that was around the time that I'd heard, and it might have been Rob Gracie even saying it, like, we've got to get creative with our shots. Like, every shot, if you look back in the magazines to that point, had been white snow, blue sky, and a guy in the air. Like, everything.
Yeah.
Or, like, white snow, guy doing a turn, big rooster tail, blue sky. Like,
yeah, that's all they're the only colors, right? Blue and white.
That was it.
Yeah.
Like, the whole magazine was
or
blue
green
and white.
if you have some trees.
Yeah, and that was it. And around that time, like, your shots and then subsequent photographers coming up with people to go to Mount Seymour.
Yeah.
That was 2 full seasons where all of a sudden there was more Mount Seymour in the magazine than everything else combined.
Oh, I think it was longer than 2 seasons. We blew that place up.
It was insane.
I remember stories of people telling us that they were going to move to Whistler, and they decided to move to North Van to ride Seymour because of what they've seen in the magazines, right? I mean, that place looked really okay. It is fun.
It's amazing, yeah.
But it's not
Whistler.
It's and it's not like if you just want to go ride. I mean, you've got 20-second runs there, right? Or if you hike this, you can hike this jump, but it turned into a spot where we would go up now, and there's 25 booters built, and just random kids chucking themselves off of all these backcountry booters.
Totally.
It was insane. And then there was to a point where you couldn't even shoot there anymore because everything would be bomb holed or was built or built wrong, or you just couldn't make it happen. But we had a couple years there of
and then the relationship
just
too
slaughtered
with,
it.
the relationship with Seymour. I can remember at the heyday you guys got better than staff passes. You got a discount on alcohol and the rock shoots, and you got it was basically a free-for-all. You could bring anyone you wanted up there at any time.
Oh yeah.
And then they kind of clamped down, sort of right at the...
Well, and so they should have. It was so loose there for so long. So many people would come up, and they would just say, I'm a photographer.
Yeah.
Give me some passes.
Yeah.
And they just... The people that at the... the marketing people knew, but you didn't even have to go to the marketing people. You just go to the... to guest services and be like, hi, I've got a camera, and I want to take some pictures today. Do you guys have any passes? And
they would
think they were just flowing stuff. And, But, there was... I don't know. 4 or 5 years of course passes. We had discount on food, and the owners, Eddie, like their family. It was a family-run operation. They were really, really good to us.
So good, yeah.
When the mountain would close, they would get us up on snowmobiles to get us to the top of the chairlift so that we could hike, up further and shoot sunset or sunrise. Well, actually, I don't think we ever shot sunrise. Sunset for sure. But we had so many amazing times up there, right?
Somebody told me when Sluggo got a sled, he drove it up to the parking lot. He just took it off his truck up there and tried to just ride up Mount Seymour into the backcountry.
Might have happened. That might have been when they were closed, though.
Right. Right.
Oh, we don't have sleds for you guys to get you up there, and I think he might have shown up with
his own sled and just got fuck it, I'm going.
Yeah,
we're going up.
Yeah,
that was an amazing time. So at that time, were you also shooting up in Whistler and building your group of people that you shot with, kind of thing?
Yeah,
that builds into a Trans World senior photographer position at some point, right?
Yeah, so that first shot of San Salone, which and then a couple issues later was a sequence of Devun, the 360 alley-oop tail grab that ran. It was a 2-pager sequence.
Yeah.
That was been 95. I think it would have come out 95, 96 season.
Yeah.
And then so there was that was our first get off the ski hill and shoot in the backcountry. Right. Or side country, whatever you'd want to call that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's still, I've seen avalanches up there, so it can be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So from that, and then snowmobile access stuff and getting into the Whistler backcountry, because it came to a point where you couldn't keep shooting city shots, right? So there's the city booter, right? And then you hike up even further, and then there's a quarter pipe that you can shoot with the city in the background, and then there's this other hip that you can shoot with the city in the background. And then you shoot the other way, and there's Mount Baker in the background, and there was just so many different things. The McGuire hit was named after a shot we took and got on the cover of Snowboarder. The Dave Lee gap, when Devun hit that, there was this huge frontside air, and then Dave 360'd it, and then 7'd it, and then we just sort of exhausted all the options up there, year after year after year.
Did you ever go past first peak? You went to second peak or third peak?
Yeah, I think. Well, the first peak is where the quarter pipe is, I think, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And then you go further and that's when you go down. There's the Whiskey Booter.
Yep.
Right, and then the Dave Lee gap, and
that's
then that's up to the second one.
Yeah.
I think we've gone up to there, and I don't think there was much there, and I don't think we went any further than that.
Right. Yeah, people were shooting at Cypress at that time. I remember seeing Chris Steves got a bunch of same thing,
that was me.
That was you.
Yeah.
Into the back with the bay in the back.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can't see the city at that point. You could just see
House Sound or whatever
House
that is.
Sound. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful shots.
Yeah. I had a cover of Chris there as well. And
Yeah.
it was kind of like a quarter pipe
Yep.
into like a bank landing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would go and hit that stuff after and be like, fuck, we live in the magazine.
Yeah.
That was the thing for me. I was still like enamored with, you would still read the magazines cover to cover. It would change. It changed for me at that point to where it was like, now you were looking for your friends in there and like the lesser known guys, because you're like, oh, maybe I could fit in this magazine.
Yeah.
If I rode with Chris Steves. I mean, he did have, I don't know if that was 90 rolls or something. He got those pretty early on, and it was photo worthy. So then I would be like, shit, I should get something like that.
Yeah.
And then Sand Stallone got switched 90 rolls.
Yeah.
And won everything that year and kind of blew
X
up.
Games, right?
Yeah. Won the X Games.
Yeah.
It was definitely happening around us here. But as soon as you guys got to the Whistler Backcountry, it did that thing where what was happening in the magazines was not what I was doing on the hill.
Right.
Like, there was no way that I was catching up to that. Like,
Yeah,
once you
that-
guys
I
got
mean-
back there, it was big.
Yeah, it was started off pretty small, like sleds didn't go very far back then.
Right.
And they were very inconsistent with operation, right? Like, if you parked it slightly downhill, it took an hour to start it because it would flood, or if you ever tipped it, you had to just let it sit there for 45 minutes before you even start pulling it because and then they wouldn't climb very far, right? Because they weren't really made to go,
in the
up
Alpine.
huge mountains, But we were still in an area that was sunny and completely untracked, and nobody there to tell you that you're not allowed to do this here.
Right.
It was free for all. So that was the beginning of that. And once you go there, you can't go back to the ski resort and shoot side hits.
Right.
And either dealing with ski patrol or other people, they don't realize what you're doing, and they ride in under the landing and just.
And they're all about liability. They're looking at what
Yeah.
you guys are doing, going, there's a really, really good chance someone's going to get badly hurt here.
Yeah.
Like, and we don't want to take that chance inside the resort or even at the side country where we can see you.
Yeah, exactly. That's what was good about Seymour is they encouraged that, right?
Yeah.
Because all they saw was, you got to think like Mount Seymour, like, so that was the first place I went skiing when I was 10 years old or whatever I was. And that was known as like the baby hill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was, you go to learn there, and then you went to Cypress or whatever. That was the baby place. So they've had that reputation their whole life, and all of a sudden now you've got some of the best snowboarders in the world getting the best shots in covers of magazines all over the world on their mountain. And it just every issue of every magazine at that time, you would open up Mount Seymour, Mount Seymour, Mount Seymour, Mount Seymour.
Totally.
They were loving it. They're like,
Yeah,
more,
definitely
bring more.
switch them from that baby hill feeling.
Yeah.
And I've heard people come out and go to Mount Seymour and then go, what in the fuck?
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah, exactly.
It's tiny and what?
Yeah.
There was a cover shot on, that's a side hit. It's like, it's a really good side hit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you take a really good rider on that, and
Yeah.
and then
And then here we are 25 years later, and Arthur Longo, side hit guy.
Yeah.
He comes up and finds a whole new side hit last year.
Oh, no way.
Everybody's looking at it like, what? That was always there.
Yeah,
Can't
but
believe
that
we
guy's
didn't
insane.
He's insane.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you take a rider at that level, they
Right.
just look beyond what
Yeah.
you
You put him on
possible.
a side hit, and it's like, you want to see that.
Yeah.
It's crazy for me, just on a side note, when I got to ride with Mike Rankwit, because, as an outsider watching videos, you kind of look at Mike and go, he was a shit disturber. He had good style, but like he never really put down a hammer video part that I can think of. Like he didn't have like a part where I watched it and went, oh yeah. But then riding with them, he's 50 years old. He rides so fucking fast. He'll still hit like a back five with a grab for an old guy. That's insane. And hit like a tranny finder landing like properly.
I'm picturing a movie that he
incredible.
was in that I remember being stoked watching, because he was always one of my favorites to look. to look at.
Probably a fall line film when they went to Alaska or something. He had a couple.
No, it was on a resort somewhere, just side hits and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he was.
But I always liked his style, and him and Roach are my two favorites.
Mm-hmm. I was late to the game of style. For me, I was like Damian Sanders. Oh my God! And now I go back and I watch, and actually, he does have good style considering all of the hindrances to what like a 12-inch stance and hard boots.
Yeah, for sure. He sent it though.
But like I can remember in Snowboarders in Exile, my friend coming away going, that Chris Roach thing, right? And I was like, Chris Roach, all he did was like a couple of front sides.
Yeah.
He didn't even spin. He spun a no-grabbing backside 360. These guys are doing double backflips. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Chris Roach. And then now, years later, I'm like, oh yeah, Chris Roach.
Yeah. I still remember him riding under Blackcomb chair, or 7th Heaven chair on Blackcomb.
Oh, yeah.
Riding POW, and just the way he rode was...
Yeah, on
just
that quarter pipe.
Well, that too, but even just turns. Yeah,
yeah.
all that shit was...
He's still doing it now.
Yeah.
Like, you still see his Instagram, and you're like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So before we get to Instagram, which kind of ruins everything, right?
Yeah.
There's a period in there where I remember seeing you, and you're like a fucking surf... Like, you're a surf photographer, like senior surf photographer for Transworld Surf. How the hell does that even happen?
Yeah.
Because nobody from surfing comes into snowboarding. Like, Sonny shot some stuff. I shot with Joey Libby, who was a North Shore photographer for surfing, but only because of the Ice Age guys.
Yeah.
That
was my relationship with the Transworld guys. So they're all in one building, right? So I'd walk in, you visit the snow department, then you go visit the skate department, and then they get a surf magazine, then you go say hi to those guys, or maybe I asked the editors at the snow magazine to introduce me or something like that. But so at the time, Pete Terrace is the photo editor, and meet him, say hi, that kind of thing. And then a little bit later, chatting to him, I don't know if it was a different trip or whatnot, and I was like, there's some really cool surfing in Canada. And I said, there's one beach that people squat at. They build these houses. They've lived there, raising kids there, and all they do is surf. It's this amazing lifestyle, all revolving around surfing. And then the government's kicking them out because they're turning it into what happened is they turned it into a provincial park, and then pushed all these guys out and told them to go.
I remember seeing a documentary on it. A lot of French Canadians that had moved there, and weren't the Brewilers raised there, or somebody was?
No.
One of those guys, Pete DeVries, maybe.
No, none of those guys. There's
because we're talking about Sombrio, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I remember seeing the documentary. I don't know why.
The Brewilers would go down there, and they were friends with those guys and surf every once in a while with them.
Right.
But no, they weren't part of that. But I use that story as there's some cool shit going on in Canada. And the photo editor, Pete, was one of the first guys to embrace surf photography that wasn't front lit, sunny skies, everything perfect,
Right.
Like your typical Hawaii or Southern California surf shot. He's like rain, pine trees, no houses, black and white, grainy, great.
Rad.
That I would love to shoot or love to print stuff like that, but nobody shoots that. So if you want to shoot that, that would be great. So I took that information and I think I called Ryan Tarrant, who was a local skateboarder and snowboarder here, and I knew he grew up on the island and knew those guys, and I was like, hey, can you put me in touch with one of the Brewilers? I want to go over there and shoot. So I think what he did actually is put me in touch with Jeremy Koreski, who grew up with them, and he's also a photographer and was shooting some surfing stuff then. Put me in touch with them, and I was like, oh, he had made a movie. That's what it was, Numb.
I remember
now.
Numb.
Had what he had done by that time. So I was like, hey, from Vancouver, I work for Transworld Surf, which I didn't. But
nice.
but I want to come over there and shoot everyone. Can you put me in touch? That kind of thing. And so I just cold called Raph and said basically the same thing. I'm a photographer. I want to come take pictures of you. And, Jeremy was shooting them, probably since high school, but nothing was ever getting published, right? Because he was sending stuff to surfers and they didn't care about Canada, that's not a surf spot. We don't care. And I don't think anything was really getting published. So I call and say, I want to come over and shoot. So of course, they jump at the opportunity and, get a few shots, send them to Transworld, and they're like, yeah, these are great. And they start printing stuff. These guys get checkouts, and it's sort of the beginning of the surf world learning that there's surf in Canada, and now pros want to come to Canada. And
that breakaway, because it was the Breweiler, Seb and Raph, is that right?
Yeah. And
then Pete DeVries.
Yeah. So they were the main dudes, right? At that time, Pete was really young.
Yeah.
And Noah was even younger, kind of funny. He was like 10 or something like that. I think when I met him, this little lippy kid, and would hang out with Sepp, and Sepp was the same way, sort of kind of in your face kid, and he was grooming Noah to be the same way, which is quite funny.
Rad.
So I spent most of the time with Raph, who was a little bit older and sort of had his shit together. And we'd just go on these amazing trips all over the coast. He understood, every nook and cranny.
Yeah, they would have the secret spots and stuff, right? Like, it's firing here today.
Yeah. Like he'd literally look up at the sky and be like, "We got to go to that beach," because he knew where the swell was coming from. He knew the way the clouds were moving, what was going to be good, and did a few trips, got a couple stories, a bunch of checkouts, and that just sparked the whole evolution of shooting in Canada.
I can remember when those guys broke out, and then they start competing on like the pro tour. Even.
Well, Pete did a couple competitions, and then the one came to Tofino that he won.
Right,
but that was a few years later.
But
when I started shooting, like the word got out that Transworld Surf was shooting in Canada.
Yeah,
and then I think when Surfer heard that, Surfer Magazine, they call up Jeremy and be like, "Hey, what are we missing out on? Can you get us some shots?" Right? It was a competitive thing.
Yeah.
So then that, that's what sparked Surfer to get involved from the way I understand it.
Right.
And then it's the magazines, and Jeremy and I kind of not battling, but kind of, there's like, let's make this happen. Now he's shooting for Surfer, I'm shooting for Transworld, and we're trying to, get to these spots, but now there's only 3 surfers that you're shooting. There's only so many spots that are good at the time. They all kind of surf together, so now we're all like the 5 of us going to the same spot.
Totally.
And Jeremy knows, he's got a boat. I don't have a boat, so it's a little bit harder for me to get to
Heshquit or some.
Yeah, well, I'm getting a boat or a ride out with Raph, but I'm not driving around in his boat.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so Jeremy's like, he's got a little boat, and so he's sitting in the channel on his boat. And I'm like, hey, give me a ride, and it was just kind of the dynamic of that at that time. And then I bought a jet ski, so I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna get something so that I can go on and be self-sufficient and get shots and swimming in the water and shooting that way. But
I remember it's such an amazing time for me to hear that that's where you'd taken it, and then flash forward another couple of years and the bottom's falling out of snowboarding, right? Like it's going from videos to now it's just like instant Instagram.
Well, I think what
stuff.
happened is the birth of digital,
right?
And it becomes cheap and easy for everyone to shoot.
I think I talked to you actually around that time and asking you like, are you going to digital? And you're like, not until it's at 10 megapixels or something like that. Like, I don't know if
I don't know if that was me. I would have said I'm not going digital. I actually fought it for the longest time.
Yeah.
But
I remember
the reason for it was because I knew how easy it was going to be,
right,
and how it would change.
Right.
So I felt that if I said digital sucked, that maybe it wouldn't go that way.
Sure. Sure.
Because I had invested. My career was at the place it was at because I could expose film and make sure that it, like someone could hire me, I could shoot it, and the shot would turn out.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of other people would shoot, and it just wouldn't be there. And then, you can only waste so many rolls of film and expenses on a photographer that doesn't
especially
get the
a
shot,
trip,
right?
yeah. Like if you send all your guys on a trip with a dude who doesn't get the shot, you're never doing that again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now you introduce digital, and you take the shot before the guy even moves.
Yeah.
And you can see if it's in focus. You can see if it's
totally
exposed properly. Even if it's not exposed properly, you can just put in your computer and move some dials around, and now, it just opens the door for everyone to be a photographer.
right.
Of course, there's relationships and angles and lens choice, composition, all of that stuff that plays into it. But it's not rocket science.
And at the same time, as digital comes in, so does the internet. So now you can just look online how to fix your shots.
Yeah. For
So-
sure. So it took the skill in a lot of ways out of it, or
Right.
a lot of the skill, right?
Right.
Because I spent years and years burning through film, figuring it out.
Did you ever mentor under anyone? Did you ever?
Not officially. I mean, Bryce Knights and Grant Britton for sure back in those days, explained, I don't know, depth of field and, that kind of stuff, right? You don't want to shoot like this because it flattens things out. Just like those things that now seem pretty basic, but, as a new person, maybe it's not quite as obvious.
Sure.
Yeah,
So then, what's your first digital camera? When did you go to digital? What?
It would have been 2006, I think.
And what would that? Would that like?
Here's the funny thing: it was a surf trip. I just get the camera. It's a surf trip, and it's in Canada with the Quicksilver Crossing boat. It's a Quicksilver trip, and it's when we discovered this new wave that's super popular now. It's been on the cover of surf magazines all over the world. And we were able to discover this wave because now we're on this big boat. So when you're leaving on a boat from Tofino, you can only get so far before you have to come back because there's nowhere really to anchor, and sleep, right?
Sure.
Especially in those crazy conditions and whatnot. So now all of a sudden now we're on a boat that you can tuck into a bay. It's sheltered and you got a place to sleep, and we can stay out there and wait and see how tides changing and everything will switch to stuff. So anyway, we shoot this trip, and the way that the digital works is it goes through these filing numbers, right? And then once it gets to the end of that, it starts as a new one, but it kind of starts like a new folder within your card.
Sure.
So I shot all this amazing stuff, and then next time I look, I'm scrolling through it and it's not there because it's in a different folder. I didn't know how to get back there, so I thought somehow I lost it all.
Oh,
and
shit.
I'm tripping.
Yeah.
Right, because the best session we had was on this new wave that we had found. All the shots were not on the camera.
Oh, fuck.
And it wasn't until I got home and I downloaded them that I realized that it put it into a different folder, and that was my big kind of scare at going to digital, right? But
what body was that? Would it be a
would have been a
1D or something?
1D, I think it was. Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah, I think that's.
And that stuff was getting published kind of right away. Like, did you take both cameras on trips for the first little while?
No,
You just switched over.
no. Once I switched over,
was
that was that, and it's nice. Like a lot of people say that they like the idea of shooting on film and
the grain, the colors.
I don't know. I think I spent 15 years, dealing with you're on a trip going to Europe and you're taking all your film and you put it in a bag, and then you say you can't X-ray this, so then they got to search it and they take every single film out. They look at it, and you spend an hour there and they look through every roll of film.
Yeah.
And then you shoot it and you have no idea what you've got, and then you do the same thing coming back. And they're like, well, I got to look inside this. And you're like, no, the film's exposed. Like, you're going to ruin it if you take it out there. And then they're like, well, we're going to throw this through the X-ray machine. And then you pray that it doesn't ruin your film.
Right.
And then you get the stuff back, and it's good, it's bad. Oh, I thought I had this, but it didn't work out. Whatever it was, right? So now you've eliminated all of that. And
I remember you also here in town, maybe a break into a car, and you lost all your fucking gear.
Yeah, that's the original GoFundMe.
Really?
Right? Yeah, because so what happened is I was joking around with one of the editors at Transworld, and I was like, fuck, if everyone just gave me $1, like,
Right.
I could get all new gear. And she's like, why don't we do that? Or why don't you do that?
Yeah.
So it was, we just held this contest. This is the early stages of, or maybe it was before the internet. It might have been before the internet. But anyway, the contest goes out that, and I think they had a thing called Tiny Type, right? It was all gossip,
I remember that, yeah.
So I think they said, snowboarding photographer Scott lost his gear. He's going to, I think I was going to give away a photograph of something, and all you have to do, it's going to be a raffle. You just have to send in $1 and enter your name. But brands caught on to that. They wanted to support. So I was getting boots and jackets and bindings and all this gear that people were going to, magazine subscriptions, right, that everyone was kicking down. And I still have all these letters, still to this day. Some people sent $20, some people sent $1. And if you sent $20, your name went in 20 times. And,
that's incredible.
I remember a story of one dude, he sent $20. I think he got a new snowboard and a new jacket.
He won twice.
He won twice.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I think I raised like $6,000 or something.
Holy fucking
It was
shit.
insane. It was unbelievable. That's why I kept all these letters, because it was such a it was
a life-changing amount at that time, because you went from having no gear to all brand new gear.
Yeah, but it was more like the support and what people actually went through, and and believed in it. It was pretty cool, right? And if you fast forward now, like, you've got these GoFundMe pages that sort of do this, all the time. But that was, like literally a handwritten mailed envelope with $1 in it.
That's insane. That's amazing. Did you get a bunch of American money?
Yeah.
So
because
that's
when
like
it went
$1.25.
into the Transworld thing, right? 100,000 copies
in tiny
worldwide.
type. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always wondered what their distribution was. Like, did they have would they make 100,000 issues, copies per issue, kind of thing?
Well, I think what they print and what they
they
what
have to give a
sell
bunch away, right? But
well,
then
the
they've
thing
got
is too
distribution
is
all
they
over
have
the
to
place.
put 15 copies into the 7-Eleven.
Yeah,
they'll sell 2 or 3.
And then they get all this back,
and then they throw them away, right?
Right.
So they print. It might have been in the heyday, like 250,000 copies,
Incredible.
but I think they would only sell like 100,000 of them,
right?
Something like that.
But they were doing all right, I guess. Do you have any intel or insider knowledge on them calling it quits? I heard from someone that they're just calling the magazine print is done, but they're going to keep doing Transworld, the brand.
No.
It's done.
No, Transworld, the brand, website, Instagram, everything will be shut down.
Well,
so the magazine's done now. The website will be up for next couple more months, I think.
Well,
that's it.
I should say this off mic, but like, we should get that brand. Like, I just listened to a startup podcast about like dead brands. Like Nerf was kind of like in the shitter, and then this lady took Nerf from like nothing to like 200 million in sales, because when you say Nerf to a parent, the Nerf football thing from when we were a kid, and like, it has so much love in the brand. Like, I've never seen my Instagram feed so chock full of one thing as the Transworld announcement. Because what a great opportunity, even for myself, to that one time I got a picture in there, I'm gonna take a picture of that and put it out there. And everyone's doing it. And like, I saw some of your cover shots when I was going through your Instagram. I'm going, fuck, how many did you have? You must have, like, so many. Like, but that brand, I'm not going to put this in the show because I don't want someone else to grab it. We should own it.
Well, that's the thing. You could put it in the show because they still have it. It's not like they've just released it, right? They're shutting it down. They're not doing anything with it. There was talk that somebody apparently wanted to buy it, and maybe they entertained that thing, but you're dealing with a big corporation, and they're they would rather just sit on something than
weird to
it.
me. It's so crazy.
It is. But I mean, if you think about it, like, you just buy this media group, and you've got a skateboard magazine, you got a surf magazine, you got a bike magazine, you got 2 snowboard magazines,
right? And
you're in a world of nobody buys magazines, so why do you have 2 snowboard magazines? I'm surprised that they got rid of Transworld. I figured they would keep that one and get rid of Snowboarder.
Right.
It kind of seems like there's more history with the Transworld one,
and the brand is a little bit bigger and more diverse, right? Like the Transworld videos are the best videos.
Well, back in our day,
yeah.
But if you look at Instagram, Snowboard has got a bigger following,
way bigger, right?
I'm not sure about the website, but probably the website too. I'm guessing. So I don't know if that has anything to do with their decision, or maybe it's like we can sell Transworld in the newsstand, or we can sell Snowboarder. Well, what makes more sense as a business thing? Well, Snowboarder, it's snowboarding.
Yeah,
that seems like it's going to sell more than Transworld, right? Because you're talking suits that don't know anything about or care about the brand, the history, the sport, even in general. All it is numbers.
Yeah.
Right?
And I've seen that. I've sat in a boardroom where they were going, okay, Moro, we own this brand. What do? Do we keep it high end, or do we flush it out to the sport marts of the world? And I'm like, high end. Like high end, obviously. And then they run the numbers and go, it's Sport Mart.
Yeah.
Like, we can make money the Sport Mart way, and we can't make money the other way.
Yeah.
So it's probably the same suits, looking at it going, yeah, obviously Snowboarder, that's a better name.
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, it was destined, I think, when it originally sold, I don't know when exactly it was independently owned, right? The Balmas owned it. They sold it, and it got into like a media corporation.
Yeah.
It was destined to die, right? Because there's too many suits in a different state or different country that need to justify a paycheck.
Totally.
Right? And it needs to make money, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to just pay the people that are making the magazine, right? It needs executives to make money, right? And that's why the independents are still around, right? Because they don't need to make 7 figures for the shareholders, right? They just need to pay the editor, the photo editor, the writers, the photographers, pay for the cost of the paper,
right?
Yeah,
it's funny how even, I'm sure you've had this too, like when you're a kid just wanting to see your name in print, and then those first years of like they're sending you on a trip. Like I can remember working for Murray at the boardroom, going down to Vegas to buy at the trade show, getting paid my $10 an hour or whatever it was for the hours I'm working there, and thinking, I also made the $500 that he paid for the ticket for me to get here, plus the $400 he spent on the hotel room. Like I remember doing that math, being like, I'm getting paid like $2,000 this week.
Yeah.
And then 4 years in, I'm like, why am I not getting paid 24 hours a day that I'm away from my wife and kid?
Yeah.
Like there is no value in the trip. Forget it.
Yeah.
Like, so you go from appreciating it in this way that it's like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me, to like, oh fuck, I gotta go fly to Alaska to film with Travis Rice. Sorry, honey.
That's horrible.
I'm gonna miss my kids' Christmas play or whatever it is.
Yeah. I lied to my kids for the first few years for their birthday.
Really?
Yeah, they'd be 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
And we'd tell her that, your birthday's next week, just because I was away that week. So I'd be like, your birthday's next week. And then I'd come home for it. We'd celebrate it a week late or a week early or whatever. Because that's the only thing I wanted. I shouldn't say the only thing, but we definitely tried to not have a kid during winter. Right, because that's when I'm always away, right? So we tried to, but
yeah,
it just turned out I was actually in Alaska for the Art of Flight for a month, and then came home, and that's when I got pregnant, and she comes out in February.
Yeah, was that a life changer for you? Life changing event, being involved with Art of Flight?
Not really. Kind of sucked.
In what way?
No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Oh, of course.
For sure. That was.
I remember seeing them when they brought you guys up on stage at the Vancouver premiere, and you could tell that the group of you guys had been through something together making that film.
Yeah, that was amazing for sure. And it's an interesting, that whole dynamic. I mean, what it started out as to what it turned into. Nobody could have guessed it. Nobody could have expected that. It was never the plan. Like even getting the call, I had never met Travis before. I'm at Mount Baker. I'm hanging with Landvik, and he's like, I'm going to Nelson filming this thing with Travis. He's making a movie. You should come. yeah, that sounds cool. Whatever. And then Travis called me, hey, we'd love to have you out. We got Mark Gallup here for the first 2 weeks, and then if you come out the next 2 weeks, that would be great. I did that, and Gabe Langlois, one of the filmers, I talked to him, and he's like, I'm just going to give you like a little heads up that Kurt does not like photographers. Like, he's here to make a movie. He doesn't give a fuck about, if you get a shot or not, that kind of thing. So it's not like how we're used to working, where they would go up and gallop, and a couple of other people would sit and wait for the helicopter to come back. But if they were shooting and they didn't want to come back and get you, then you would just get left behind. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll, take it how, going. I work for Transworld. I'm going to go shoot for them and, get what we get, and that's it. So I think having that knowledge ahead of time, I didn't push and complain. I want to get out. Why don't you pick me up? I need to be there. I need to be in the first crew. I don't know. I'm super important. You got to have me there. Right? I just took it really easy, and I think that helped to get the call for the second trip. Actually, Kurt offered me he's like, you coming to Alaska with us? And I was like, I don't know. Are you asking me? Because yeah, of course, I'd love to go. Alaska's always one of the best places to shoot, and then you're going with Travis, John Jay, Lando. Right? God. I'm like, of course. But then, I've never been on a heli trip like that before. Up until then, for most people that don't know, a helicopter is $2,000 to $3,500 an hour. So if you're flying around going, I wonder if that would be good or that would be good, it's like dollar bills chucked out of the window, faster than you can throw them, right?
Yeah.
And so whenever we've flown around here, we'd get up in the air, and before, like, you just put it down.
Right.
Like, oh, we'll find something there. Just put it down, because you've already spent $1,000, right?
Yeah.
And then to go on that trip was going to be nuts, and there's guaranteed minimums that you have to pay. So we were there for a month, and I think it was something like 100 or 150 hours that we had to pre-book up front.
Wow.
Plus the lodge in the middle of nowhere, the flight to Anchorage, the flight from Anchorage to the lodge, all the fuel and the food, and it was a big one. And I remember contacting Red Bull and being like, I want to go on this trip. Can you pay for it? And then maybe I can get some shots for you. We can't really see logos in Alaska. It never really worked out for us. The guy's usually really small on big mountains, so we don't really see a benefit in it. So they're like, nah, not really into it.
Wow.
So Travis really wanted a photographer there, and he's like, we'll figure it out. The helicopter's going to be there, the lodge is going to be there, and I think between Travis and Brain Farm, they just made it work to get me there.
Wow.
Transworld kicked down as much money as they could, but they couldn't afford a seat on that trip. It's like a seat on the Titanic, right?
Yeah, it was massive.
Massive. So I got on that trip, and we flew to this lodge, and we sat for 10 days probably in rain and cloudy weather, and that's when we saw all the down day footage of the guns and all that silly stuff.
That was your first exposure to this crew in Alaska. Was Lando and just shenanigans. But it was just, there was nothing to do, and we had no idea what the mountains looked like. I think at that time, Jeremy Jones had been to the Tordrillos once. Yeah. I think Warren Miller had done something there, and that was it. That hadn't really been shot. So we didn't really have much to go off of, and then it cleared. And I remember our first day, it was sunny. And okay, it's go time. And then Kurt wanted all these getting ready shots, getting into the helicopter, and all the the slow motion walking to the helicopter, and the helicopter starting up. By the time we got all the shots, it clouded over again. Oh, and we're just kicking ourselves. Like, are you kidding me? Our first opportunity to get out there, and now it's done, right? Next day, I think it was cloudy again, and maybe the next day after that, it clears up.
And we get out there, and the helicopter lands. I remember I've never had a helicopter sink that far into the snow, like right up to the door.
Oh,
it
wow.
was insane. And we get out, and we're up to our waist, and just, mind blown. And this place was so big, and just the most insane looking mountain peaks everywhere. We were blown away. And then the very first spot we get off, we stand on the ridge, and we're kind of looking over. I don't get to see any of this face because I'm in the middle and the riders are on the outside, so they can see everything, right? So I'm just sort of tucked in there and I can't see anything. And we get out, we're standing on this ridge, and like I said before, you see 5 feet, and then it just rolls over, and that's that. And you see the valley bottom. And Travis looks at me, he's like, "You want to go first?" It's like, no, like, thanks, but no, I'm scared shitless. So he drops first, and I quickly pull out my camera. I'm like, I'm just going to get a shot of you dropping in from here. And he sort of rides down this ridge, and then one big turn drops and disappears, and then 5 minutes later you see him ride out at the bottom. And Clark, our guide, is like, "Yeah, it looks sick." He had already done one run down, actually. Clark was the first one down. Just follow his lines, stay to the left, you're all good, right? That kind of thing. So everyone else sort of drops, and super tame, making these little turns, and then you look back and you're like, fuck, you could have easily opened it up. It was just this huge wide powder field that it was just really steep, so you didn't see a lot of the stuff, and
right.
Slough is moving, so it's definitely intimidating dropping in for the first time. But it turns out that very first shot I took of Travis was a cover of Transworld Japan.
Oh, Jesus.
Very first turn of the trip.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which, looking back now, was foreshadowing to how that trip was going to go, because for the next 3 weeks was so cold, super light, super deep, and super stable snow. Like the best conditions you could ever hope for.
Rad.
And the riding just got better and better and better. And it almost got to a point where we weren't even surprised anymore.
Right.
When good shit would get landed, you're like, of course he hit that at full speed and landed and rode away, and it just progressively got better and better and better and better. It was for sure a life-changing trip for everyone involved, right? And from that trip went so well that, again, Kurt's like, "Coming to Chile?" I'm like, "I don't know, are you asking me?"
Yeah.
Like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do it. And then that we went to the exact opposite, where nothing went right.
Bad snow conditions.
Just bad snow, yeah.
Yeah.
It would snow 2 feet, and we're like, great, let's go up. And then they're like, where is it? It
super windy or something.
Yeah, blew away, and it was just couldn't really get anything done. And I know the guys at Red Bull that were paying for it were freaking out. They're like, "What are you doing down there? Get home. Quit wasting money." But
right.
What I think they didn't realize is that you had to prepay for the helicopter down there, because there's only a handful of helicopters in that area. So you're booking 100 hours again. And if there's snow or no snow, you still pay the 100 hours. And we're there for a month.
Oh, fuck.
With this helicopter. There's no point leaving, because everything's like, your house is paid for, and when you're paying for food, that's it, right? So what are you saving to leave, right? Nothing.
And what if you leave and it opens
gets good.
up and it gets good? Right.
So we stay and we just keep pushing and pushing, and we just get nothing. And that's when, we took the helicopter to the ocean to watch a surf competition, and then we took the helicopter down into town, and we landed in this field, and we went and bought ponchos, and we went to a winery, and because you've got all these hours,
oh my god,
you can't use them unless you got to do something, right?
That's insane. How fun is that?
So it was this trip. What
kind of weird life are you living, where you're just like sitting there trying to think of things to do with helicopters?
Yeah,
let's go shoot some nature or whatever.
Yeah, there's this one part where we're flying around, and this condor flies out of this waterfall, this 1,000-foot waterfall, and it's just the most insane shit, right? Like, remember the pilots, like, there's pyroglyphs or I don't know, some kind of petroglyphs, whatever it is. And we're just flying in circles looking for it, like It was insane. It was absolutely insane. And then we landed on this. So picture a waterfall that's got to be 1,000 feet into this pool, and then there's a little bit of a sort of like a stream out of this pool of water, and then down another like couple 100-foot waterfall. So we land the helicopter there with the tail hanging over the second waterfall. You know, when you land, there's so much water around, they're splashing on the windows, you can't really see.
Yeah.
We get out, and we're in a spot that nobody has ever been before. And I'm like, I'm going to go swimming in this thing.
Nice.
So, like, you know, nobody's ever been here. No one's ever coming back here. I'm going to swim in this thing. So I climb out of the helicopter from the back seat. I got to reach my bag that's in the tail boom. And, like, I'm standing there, and 20 feet over is the drop-off of a 200-foot waterfall, right? And I'm standing in the water of this creek running from the pool that I'm going to go swimming in, right? It's mind-blowing. But so that was the end of that year, and then the footage gets edited, and I think that's when the guys at Red Bull are like, holy shit.
Right.
This Alaska stuff is next level. And everyone gets excited, you know, as far as, the people that are producing it, right? They're like, we got something special here. Let's keep this going.
Do they offer you a position as a Red Bull photographer at some point?
No, because at this time, it's just a, you know, like a random snowboard film.
Right.
And then we go into the next year, and they're like, okay, they realize it's going to be a little bit bigger, right? So they're like, I think we work out something there to go on the trips, you know, X amount of money and pay the expenses and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But when it's all said and done, the Alaska is the cream of the crop.
Right.
And the magazines come out in September, which means they start looking at photos in July. I'm sitting on all this Alaska footage, and it's going into the magazines. I don't think Red Bull had quite realized the extent of what this movie could or will be. So the shots all show up in the magazine, and people are tripping, right? All these huge jumps, and the movie's not coming out for another year and a half, or a year, right? So it was kind of a mistake there, but we didn't really know. You know, there was no such thing as holding on to shots in the past, right? It was always, you know, shoot 1 year and they come out the next year.
Yeah.
So then we get on to the following season, and then I think I'm on a salary per trip or something like that, working with them and you know, sort of exercising like the fact that I work for Transworld. It's the biggest magazine, and I try to keep, you know, them from bringing other photographers that work for other magazines to spread it out, you know, that kind of thing. And I just really try to leverage that so I can stay on as the main guy. And then it comes out where, you know, all the shots are in, and Alaska is the cream of the crop, but they didn't need a photographer at the time. Right. So now I'm sitting here with all these shots, right? And they're like, there's a few of their films that had fallen through. I think a Scheckler film. So there's all this extra money that was budgeted for other things that they just dumped into the marketing of The Art of Flight, and it went insane. Like,
yeah,
these shots I had taken in Alaska are on the side of hotels in Hollywood, you know, to advertise the new film. Right. And so one thing, going back to my initial conversation with them about the trip to Alaska, is they're like, we never get shots of our logo in our Alaska shots, right? We don't need a photographer. It's a waste of our time, waste of our money. So I made a point of proving them wrong. So I'm going to make sure that I get shots with their logo.
Yeah.
And there's a shot where the helicopter comes over the ridge and they're riding down, and there's this helicopter dive bombing, right? Well, the helicopter's got a big Red Bull thing on there. So that was my idea. I was like, Kurt, let's get the helicopter into this shot, because I want to show that I can get a shot of Travis riding the line and a logo into the shot, right? So we get that, and then, hey, Travis, hike up here in front of the helicopter. I want to get that. Or turn your board so I can see the Red Bull logo. Hey, fix your toque so that I can see your Red Bull logo. So I came back with all of these shots that were Red Bull branded. Plus, it was the next level riding.
Yep.
So when it came to the marketing, here's all these Alaska shots with Red Bull logos. So it was the perfect storm.
Yeah,
right?
that's killer. Speaking of that kind of eye for, like being a professional photographer where you're hired by a company to get these shots, I remember talking to you about JF's cover, and that was, because I think I asked you just out of the blue, like, are there any shots where you just saw the shot in your mind and called someone over and said, like, hey, come hit this thing that's not really a huge thing or anything.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful shot. And
Sure, it was JF?
I think there's a JF cover shot where he's just kind of airing over something it's just a beautiful shot. I'm not 100% positive on that.
Yeah, I can only think of one.
Be an earlier shot where it was actually maybe an air to flat even, where you just said, look.
That was every shot back then.
I
I had one cover of JF I can think of. It was a cover of Snowboard Life, and it was just a method. It was pretty small, but he had a backpack on and some rocks.
Yeah, that might have been it.
Yeah, that was just a shot, and we're like, oh. I don't think he wanted to hit it.
Yeah.
He was just like, that's lame. And I'm like,
yeah.
just hit it.
Yeah,
like we can throw this stuff away later.
Look, first of all, we all know you're good, JF. It doesn't matter. What we're here to do is like make some money. You want to make some money, go hit this thing, and it's going to be a good shot.
Which I don't think it was ever maybe we talked a bit about money, but it was always, let's get shots.
Let's get the shot.
Let's just get a shot. And then that's... So what I've learned over the years, or what I've had riders learn over the years is they see a feature the way they see it and the way they want to ride it, but they don't see how I'm going to shoot it.
Right.
So they're like, that's lame. Yes, it is. However, I'm going to shoot from over here. It's going to look like this, and I'm going to make it look bigger. Your style is going to play a factor into it. It's going to look good. You're going to pack a little bit of snow on your board so that it drags off the top of the jump. It's backlit. It's going to be beautiful. Just trust me. You're not going to hurt yourself because it's good landing. It's deep. It's deep. Let's just do it.
I was
and it
exposed
was years
to that.
and years of that. Then they would at the end. Well, it's easier now with digital, right? Because now I can show them and be like, oh, okay, that looks way different than I expected.
I need you here, So jump into this shot here and be thinking about looking this way or that way.
Yeah, you got to do this trick or that trick.
Totally.
And if you do anything else, it's not going to.
Yeah, you don't want your back to me. You got to have your front to me, and your board should be pointed in this direction. Try and get it there.
So my first cover of Transworld was John Cartwright, and there's this
shot.
cliff.
Yeah,
and I was like, I need a method off of that.
Yeah,
not an indie, not a tail grab.
Yeah.
And because this is back, you're not spinning off of that stuff, or very, very few people were. I was like, just keep it simple, keep it styly, just do a method. And there was John and one or two other riders, and one of the riders I remember saying, he's like, I can't do a method off that. It's a downhill takeoff. And John's like, I'll do it. And I went up there, did it, and it was
cover shot.
And it was one of those times where I handed in my submission to Transworld. It was 2001, I think, and I started working for Transworld as a senior photographer in 98, 99, somewhere in there. So I had a bit of a reputation with them, working reputation, and I was like, okay, if I've ever shot a cover in my life, it's this shot or this shot. And I said that to John Foster, and he's like, I don't think he actually told me it then. He told me later. He's like, you were dead on. And the one was Cartwright. It was a cover, and then this other one was Lucas Huffman that ran. It's a full page.
Right.
But he's like, those are two shots that we considered both of them for the cover, and only one obviously did. But
that's so sick.
It was pretty amazing, yeah. And then it's just those times that you can just see how with light and space, and you're like, okay, there could easily be cover blurbs there. The title fits there. It just sort of
I don't have any of that. I have zero of that. I've literally went from shooting a bunch of film, missing every shot, cutting everybody's head off.
Yeah, me too.
Filming on my camera. This is what I do now. Is that it's like, okay, I'm going to film it, and then I'm just going to take a screen capture. Yeah. That's where I'm at. I'm just like
it just evolved. It was lots of time, right? And hours and hours and thousands of dollars of mistakes, right?
Right.
Just over and over and over. But then there's just this formula that kind of works.
Yeah.
And there was a time we were shooting Don Hoare and Sylvain Beauchamp. We're in Colorado, and it's this walkway kind of over a tunnel.
Yep.
a concrete rim around the edge of it, and I was like, if someone was to do a back tail on that, this will be a cover. And I remember Bosch was like, that's lame. I'm not doing it. I don't care if it's a cover. And Don's like, I'll do it. Don's never had a shot published in Transworld. Definitely not. Maybe he's had something actually in Snowboard Canada, but other than that, he's never had a shot published. It might have been never a shot published ever before.
Wow.
He did it, and cover of Transworld. And I'm pretty sure that was his first published photo ever.
That's fucking awesome.
And it was just like,
you
could just see it. It's like it's all going to work out. Like if you can do it, to make it look proper, then, and it was amazing.
That's so fun.
I'm stoked for him too, because we made the, like I got issues FedEx before it came out. No, it was pre-Instagram, so people weren't posting it.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to him, and I was like, dude, you wasted so much of my time on that trip. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to shoot with you again. Just really fucked with him for a while.
Laying it thick, like, dude.
And then I was like, and by the way, I got this thing in the mail, and I chucked it to him, and he's so bummed, right? Because, it was first time shooting with me, and just like, ugh. And then he opens it up, and he's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, lost it, right? As anyone would, right?
That's awesome.
That was amazing.
Did you ever get to the point where people are calling you or like bumping into you? I know I did it. I jumped in line with you at opening day at Whistler, and then I'm that annoying guy going, hey, did any of those shots turn out, by the way? And then you're like, what? No, you didn't do anything. I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure there's one you took of me just standing there. And you're like, oh, God. Okay, I'll go through and see if I can find it. You actually sent it to me, too, which was really nice of you. Yeah, fuck yeah. But, like, you become the guy who's, like, kind of the gatekeeper for, new guy moves to Whistler or to Seymour or to North Van and comes up to you and says, look, I'm the next. Did anyone ever come up to you and do that? Say, like, I'm the next fucking dude.
No.
You want to shoot with me or...
No, I mean, there's been a lot of, conversation, hey, we should shoot or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I was always down for just people that wanted to go out and make shots.
Build a kicker or...
Whatever it was. But just, like, realize that you're going out and you're not going snowboarding, you're going out to shoot, right?
Right.
Because, I don't want to stand around all day with a camera in my hand.
While you're riding. Right? Because it's different. It's totally different. Because the more you're shooting, the less you're riding, really. And you talk to a lot of the pros these days, and they make this video part for the whole year, but they've only ridden a couple days in the year, right? They wake up, get on a snowmobile, build a jump, hit the jump 3 times, go home. Or
there's
wake
no warm.
up,
There's no
go
warm
build
up.
the jump, go back home, wait for the jump to set.
Yeah.
Wait for the snow to come, wait for the clouds to clear, go out for those 3 hours, hit it 15 times, and go like, oh my God, there's no more landings left. I can't believe I didn't get the trick I wanted, but maybe we can use that one that I hit that was like a lesser trick.
Yeah, well, I mean, a good example would be something this year with the Man Boys. We went out one day, and the snow was shit everywhere, and you're just searching, and we're spending 2-3 hours on the snowmobile. Go to a jump, build it, and then light just goes to shit. We're like, well, maybe we'll come back tomorrow. Weather craps in, or craps out. We don't come back. Then it snows a foot, and then we go back and to shoot it, and a bunch of snow on it, so you got to reshape it and whatnot. And we end up having a great session on it, but. Rasman hits it twice, gets 2 tricks, so he sits down, and that's because every time you hit it, there's another bomb hole, right?
Right.
And that's harder for everyone else to land.
Yeah.
So he gets 2 tricks. He sort of sits down. Rusty gets a trick, sits down, and they only hit it 4 or 5 times.
That's 3 days worth of work, and 4
2 days.
2 days worth of work, and
but there's each day is a minimum, like say $100, right?
Right.
On just fixed expenses, right? Not including the cost of actually having the snowmobile, but the gas and the oil, right, to get out there. And
Yeah, when you were talking about like the amount of money you're putting out to get a shot, and then the fact that the cover of Transworld at no point paid more than $1,000 US.
Yeah.
For the cover.
Yeah. Or some people, I think, they thought you were getting paid $20,000 for it. You know, they were blown away when you told them that a full page in Transworld is $150. I think it got bumped up to $200 and $250 for a spread.
Yeah.
People were like, what?
Like if you had every photo in an issue, you're
$10,000.
Yeah, you're making $10,000.
Yeah.
And
that's that's impossible.
And JF
right?
he had a $10,000 photo incentive for getting the cover of Transworld from Planet X. I remember that contract.
Really? Hey?
And he got it like 3 weeks into the contract or something, and Jeff from Planet X was like, "Oh fuck."
Yeah.
Like we didn't think that would happen right away.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm exaggerating the timeline. It happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
But like you imagine a photo incentive for the rider of $10,000, but the photo incentive for the photographer is $1,000.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and there's only, in the heyday of Transworld, there was 8 issues, and then a buyer's guide, photo annual, and the resort guide, right? So you're looking at 11 issues. So 11 covers.
You get every cover of Transworld for a year, you make $11,000.
Yeah, and that pays for your gear, right? Not even your snowmobile, because your snowmobile is $16,000 now.
So how do you make your money as a photographer during those days?
Selling ads.
Yeah. Selling shots for $500 to a company from those trips.
Yeah. You don't have kids and a family and a mortgage, so it's easier. You don't need to make as much.
I mean, there was never rich. I honestly always thought like, oh, there's Scott Serfas, Transworld senior photographer.
He's loaded.
He's just loaded.
Yeah,
like
money is falling on my pockets.
Yeah, he parties all the time. He's always on a trip. He's like,
it was good times.
Yeah,
we're making money for sure. There was a short amount of time where,
and you were hustling.
Like we'd get $20,000 travel budget, right?
Rad.
But that took a while to get to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which sounds great, but that's not $20,000 into your bank account. That's just to pay to go on trips.
So
right?
now you and then you feel obligated to spend $20,000 on going on trips. It's not like 20.
No, it's not like you got that in advance and be like, we hope you spend this on a trip. This is like, hey, I went on a Heli trip. Here's my $1,000 plane ticket. Here's my $7,000 for Heli. Here's my $1,000 for food.
They cut you a check,
and then you pay for all that, and then you got to expense that, and 3 months later you get that check, right? And
oh man, there's no way I could do that.
Yeah, it's amazing times, right? But think of like how much it takes to get there.
Right.
It's not like you just, hey, I got a camera. Can you pay for me to go to Alaska?
I've watched
years and
people do
years of experience.
Yeah, I watched Jeff Andrick. He worked at the shop, and he had to apprentice under another guy, learn how to use a camera, and then he starts. You're kind of groveling too with. You're going out there trying to find people that you can shoot with, and hopefully one of them blows up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like with Rick McCrank and Devun Walsh, there's only so many of those dudes. Like,
yeah, you're not really hoping that they're gonna. Well, you're just hoping that you can get them in them. You know what I mean? It's not like you're relying on them to get a name because they're shooting with you. They're not shooting with other people.
Right.
So you're like, this guy's good enough to get in the magazines. Hopefully, I can be good enough to shoot something that gets him in the magazine. Right?
I think for other generations of snowboarders or snowboard photographers like a Jeff, like because you'd already done, it was already a proven concept. Like I don't know that you were following someone where you're like, oh yeah, this guy takes photos for Transworld skateboarding. This is how I do it. You're making it up as you go. But Jeff gets to see what you're doing, pick your brain a little bit, and go like, oh, okay, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. I still get emails today, and people are like, can you give me some advice?
Right.
Like, on what? And they're like, breaking into the industry, some general photo techniques. Like, well, I don't even really know what you're asking me because how do you break into the industry? I don't know. This is what I did. I took pictures of friends.
Yeah.
I got them developed at the grocery store, and I mailed them to Transworld.
Yeah.
And I networked, and I kept sending shitty photos in until eventually one of those made it somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And if you can't figure out how to use a camera right now, there's no hope because it's There's every tutorial on there's no secret to it. It's,
right.
You know, you set the shutter and the aperture and the ISO so that it's exposed properly, right? You don't want it too dark, you don't want it too bright.
Right.
And that's it. And then it's choosing a lens and an angle for what you're shooting.
And
to make that
motor drives, like
but it's
get
not
excited about motor drives. You need to literally be excited about photography. Like, so
you just have to go do it.
Yeah.
Right? That's all I did.
Yeah.
I did it, right?
Yeah.
And my expenses were my living expenses were small at the time because I didn't move out of home right away.
Right.
So I wasn't paying rent. I wasn't paying for food. You know, I had a car and gas, and that's all I really needed to do to get around.
Yeah.
And then I moved out, and I'm living with Sid Clark, and we pay $400 a month to live downtown.
Nice.
And what more? Food, beer, and $400.
Yeah.
Right? That's all you had to come up with. Right? So, you know, it wasn't
incredible.
It wasn't trips all over the world and
right,
you know,
right. Not right out
just,
of the gate. It's
no, because we didn't. You know, all you wanted to do is go skateboarding or go snowboarding or go surfing or
right.
You know, just sort of live that lifestyle. And people sometimes get caught up in the fact that they want to be this, you know, a famous pro or be a photographer or a videographer. They want to make movies.
My kid's friend said, I don't know, he's a child. He's a 15-year-old kid. He said, I want to be a Red Bull sponsored athlete. That's his thing. Red Bull sponsored athlete. And I was like, whoa, that's a specific but weird. Like, what?
Yeah.
That's your goal in life? Like, you're not fireman or photographer.
Yeah.
Or
well, if you're 15 and you're not on their radar, you're probably not going to make it.
Yeah,
right?
you're too
because
far. Yeah.
That's kind of where the levels are these days. But really, what
Terrier on the film behind us, when he's probably 15 there, and that was 30 years ago. So
that's right.
Yeah, like you probably got to be 7 now. You got to be 3 or something.
3. Yeah. But I mean, why even? Like, why? I mean, to the amount of, I don't know, the amount of people that are going to make it these days with the industry dwindling and
everything's been wrung out and
I don't know. It's
you should probably invent a sport that hasn't been invented yet,
right?
And then you'll be the best at it. People haven't seen it yet,
right?
And have a friend who's a photographer.
Yeah, there
That's
you
a
go.
good idea.
The thing is, if you're going to be a pro skateboarder, snowboarder, surfer, whatever it is, I don't think you can say I want to be a pro. You just have to love it so much that you don't even care. You're just doing it so much, and then it turns into that. But if your goal is to be a pro, then you're already into it for the wrong reasons. And same with me with photography, right? I never looked at it like that's what I want to be. I just wanted to shoot. I just wanted to see what we were doing. And oh, hey, wait, you're going to give me $100? Are you going to give me $50? Cool.
Right.
Now I can buy more film. And it was never ever about making a career or making money. It was just being out there and having fun.
Yeah.
Having a good time. And then it just evolved from that. And
that's right.
And it was never, there was never that, somebody were like, when did you know you made it? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm still struggling. Do you know what I mean? I'm still trying to find new work. I'm still trying to learn. I don't really feel that I made it. Really,
that's crazy.
Well, you know what I mean, right? Like, yeah,
I do know what you mean. Right.
I've got lots of shots published. I got a bunch of covers.
Yes.
There's some highlights. I did some cool shit.
Right.
For sure. But it's not like I'm sitting back going, I'm done.
Right.
I'm going to go to wherever, Hawaii, and just hang on the beach. Like, it's still like I'm looking for different places for work and trying to. Johnson
said it last week. He said, tell me one person who's retired from snowboarding.
Shaun White.
That's it. You get one.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
think he
that's
even
one
said
of
that.
How many people snowboard.
He said Terrier and Shaun White, but I know from hanging out with Terrier, he's not retired.
No,
because he's not. Nobody's sitting back going, okay, I did my time and I'm still getting paid.
Yeah, and Shaun's not retired. He's just moved on to different things.
Right,
you know
right,
what I mean?
right.
He's not just cruising, right? He's going to have a passion somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And like what Johnson was saying, his passion has just changed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's rad.
So, and people say to me, like, so what are you going to shoot after snowboarding? Or what are you going to shoot after skateboarding? are you going to get into commercial work and are you going to do this? And it's like, I didn't get into photography because I love photography. I got into it because I love shooting pictures of things I like to do.
Right.
So I'm not going to shoot a wedding because I love photography, right? Because that would drive me crazy, right? So if I can be outside shooting something that's interesting, then great.
Now it's going to be family. Do you have epic shots of your kids?
No, I don't really have many. But here's the thing, is it's work. It really is. And as soon as I put a camera to my face, I start sweating, even if it's my kid's birthday, right? Because I have to get that perfect shot.
Wow.
And I can't get that out. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I
I'm
remember
losing
when your
it
kid
on
was
4-year-old
really
kids.
Yeah.
Because they're not sitting still, so I can get this perfect shot of everyone looking at the camera.
That's
so
incredible.
now I just like, you know what? I'm just taking it away. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Because I just need that perfect shot, and I.
People don't realize that at all, hey? Like,
And
people
then,
would say that to me, like, what? It must be so fun to teach your kids to snowboard. I'd be like, are you joking? I like to snowboard.
Yeah.
Like, going up with your kids is the fucking opposite of snowboarding.
Right.
You've got kids you're babysitting, and they can't snowboard. They fucking suck at it.
And they don't want to hear you tell them what.
They tell you what to do.
Yeah,
They tell
exactly.
you, Daddy, we're going over here.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck. Well, this isn't snowboarding at all. Yeah,
No.
that's crazy to hear that you're
For sure.
shooting your kids. Because I remember when your first was born, there were some Instagram posts where I was like, holy shit.
Well, I did
That's some next
this
level shit.
one shot a month, like this thing that I set up, and it was
Yep.
like a studio kind of thing, and I put her like naked in a pumpkin, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And collected leaves and made this whole scene, and
It was awesome.
yeah, I'm over that. Yeah, I mean, she cried and cried and cried in this thing, and she was freezing cold in a cold pumpkin, right? Like, she hated it. But I mean, I'm happy I've got those shots. We'll look back and laugh. But
Yeah.
But once I put a camera to my face, like I said, I start sweating. It turns into a job. I'm fighting to get the best shot because that's just what I'm programmed. Like
Yep.
the horizon's got to be level. Everyone's got to be looking at you know what I mean? Like, everything's got to be
I
perfect.
hear you.
And then once you're putting the camera in your face, and this goes to Instagram and people nowadays that just take pictures of everything. You see these people with iPads that are filming the fucking stupidest shit that's happening around them.
Yeah.
Why? What are you ever going to do with that footage? You're going to go back and look at it and be like, oh, look, there was this guy playing a guitar on the street. Like, it means nothing. And you know what?
Fireworks. Remember fireworks with an iPad in front of you. Just watch the fucking
exactly,
fireworks.
because you're missing everything. You're missing everything that's happening around you. So that's another reason why I don't, unless I'm on a job, I'm not really shooting a lot of stuff because I'm missing everything around me. And I'm not going to go back and, I got enough shit to look at on a computer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go back and look at, like my daughter at her school play when she's 8. That was awesome. I had a great time watching it, and I'm glad I was there. And I don't need the video because I've got it in my head because I actually watched it.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
took it in at that time, right? And even our school, we go to the Waldorf school in Whistler, and they ask you not to film and they said be present.
Oh, that's
right?
rad.
Like, enjoy it in the moment. Don't be staring at your phone trying to frame it and making sure that everything's working. Enjoy the moment because you're going to remember that, and you're not gonna probably go back and look at your footage. And even if you do, it's some shitty recording on your phone, right? Like, and that's what drives me crazy now is everyone is a photographer, everyone's a movie maker, everyone's a director, I'm a producer.
Yeah.
Because you can build a website or an Instagram profile and say that and fool a bunch of people into, because you can get a couple lucky shots.
This weekend was the first time I realized after I raced the Seymour baked salmon that I didn't get that starting gate shot. I love those shots from the bank slalom at Baker. So I just went and got in the gate and was like, could somebody film? And like people were like, oh, for fuck's sakes, really? Are you going to post that? And so I had to. This is the first time I ever put not a disclaimer. I just said under the shot, this is me pretending to race the baked salmon this weekend. Don't believe everything you see on Instagram because it looks like the right shot.
Yeah.
And I felt embarrassed putting it out there without saying like, this isn't real.
Yeah.
But this is what it felt like 20 minutes ago when I was actually doing this, which is a fun event, which is, it's fucking everything you see on Instagram is fake in one way.
Oh, yeah.
or
And so
another.
many shots are just compositions of, or compilations of other shots, right? Mixing things together, and
Yeah.
like that place doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
You know, it looks beautiful, and you're like, fuck, I want to go there. And have you ever seen that Insta Repeat page? It's a girl in Alaska, and she, I don't know, every day or every couple of days she posts, I think it's 9 photos, and she square, like, you know, into a post of the exact same location, the exact same shot.
Yeah.
By 9 different people.
She finds
you
it.
know, and people are just, you know, you can just scroll through there and generic,
totally.
right? Like,
I was saying this, and I've said it on mic. I'll say it again because I love it. I know because our phones didn't ask us, do you want to color correct for skin tone? Do you want to color correct? They just do it. It's built into the phones. That's why when they sell you the next iPhone 10 SE or whatever, it's got a better camera. They always say that. That's the thing. Oh, this one's got a better camera. But what they mean by better camera is they've got better editing software inside. It makes you look better. And eventually it's going to be, did you mean to take? And then it'll recognize where you are, and it'll take a photo that someone else and just lay the person that is in the photo on front of a...
Yeah, because
like it's a better day. Oh, it was rainy today that you were there, but you want a sunny photo of today?
Yeah.
Because we can do
we
that.
got all the background.
We just have... It's just in a big database.
Yeah.
Your GPS says you're here. Do you want this shot with that person?
Yeah.
Bloop, it just puts it together, and it's like the touched-up version with the bigger eyes and the
I
makeup done.
know.
Like, it's going to be happening soon.
Yeah, and it's creating depression and, you know, self-confidence issues, because I scroll through there and I'm like, oh my god, look at all this great photography. I'm blowing it. Like, how come I'm never in a place that looks like this, you know? And just like, holy shit. And then, you know, people spend hours faking shots, adding clouds and trees and everything into the background of something, and then, of course, you're following all these people that post good stuff. So your feed for the hour you've been going through it is all this amazing stuff from all over the world, and you think people are having the greatest time.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Then you watch the documentaries on these people, and they're like, I am so pathetic. I do the stupidest shit, and if I can't post something and get 1 million likes, then I've cried to myself to sleep. And you realize how unhappy they are, right? And it's like, everyone's an influencer, everyone's an adventurer. Like, if you're an adventurer, you don't have time to take pictures. You know, like, I don't know. Like, if I'm out doing something, I'm not going to stop and think and be like, oh, I probably get a shot of me being here because it's cool.
Yeah,
if
Rob
you're really into it, do it. Nobody needs to
Rob
care.
definitely asked me a couple of times, like, shit, dude, we're just catboarding all day. Where are the shots? I'm like, I was catboarding all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are the shots of the heli? I'm like, you know what? It's really hard to get heli shots.
Yeah.
Which it's not, except for the fact that you're stopping an entire helicopter of people who've paid to be there that are going, fuck, dude, this is we're actually riding today.
Yeah.
So, like,
and guess what? Nobody cares.
My best shots come from the sunny day where it hasn't snowed a bunch of, you know, and we just go to one thing. And just like what you were talking about, you go up to City Booter.
Yeah.
And it's not even that good.
They take a group shot.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, in
That's
front of
it.
the helicopter.
Yeah.
We had a great time.
Helicopter's
right?
taking off. That's the shot you'll get from
put your
heliboarding.
camera down and enjoy it, right?
You just can't. It's unbelievable. Well, thanks for taking like 2 hours to
that how
talk
long we've been
about.
here for?
We've been here for 2 hours.
Damn. There's so much to talk about. We should do part 2.
We got to do part 2 for sure, because there's like a whole bunch of shit that we didn't even hit.
Yeah.
Which is rad.
Yeah. We should have recorded our phone call on the
was sick.
On the phone today.
Yeah, that was sick.
Yeah.
It's very easy to talk to you, because
we should just divide it into like, okay, let's talk about skateboarding, let's talk about snowboarding, let's talk about surfing, let's talk about
it's a good idea.
Photography.
Yeah. There's so much.
Talk about red wine.
Oh yeah,
collecting wines. Collecting hockey cards. Collecting snowboards.
Snowboards. I meant to ask you about your snowboard collection. Has that fallen off, or are you still just as?
I just go through phases of collecting shit.
Yeah.
So,
but then
when I was 8, I collected hockey cards. I still have those.
Holy fuck!
And then now I collect photos.
Oh man!
I shot 900,000 photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean the boards. It's cool. I like, I just don't have a big enough place to put them all. And I got a lot of the boards.
Really fucking cool.
Yeah, I went kind of crazy there for a little bit and just sort of bought up a bunch of stuff that I wanted to have.
It was a little before it really, really blew up, right? Like the pricing on stuff, because it's now.
Yeah, I don't know what
it's
exactly
big.
it is
yeah,
now.
It's expensive.
But I got some cool stuff that is is my history, what means something to me.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I guess I did start collecting boards a lot longer before that. I collected friends' pro models.
Rad.
So they'd get a pro model, and I'd try to get their first year and just have them sign it. So
sick.
Devun and Dow with San Salone and Mikey LeBlanc and Travis, Ejac, all those guys that just get a board from them. Jake Blauvelt. So there's those, but then I went back and bought some early Burton stuff and Sims and just
that winter
cool,
stick board.
Yeah, the winter stick.
Sticks,
That's like a piece of art, right?
Yeah,
like it's
so
amazing.
That's a cool thing.
I'd actually love to go out and ride that, but I'm just afraid that it would just break it. Yeah,
it's built
but like the bindings. Are just
isn't that insane?
Figure 8 kind of bungee cords with some.
Do you have any old barfoot stuff? That stuff's.
I've got a brand new barfoot from '84, I think it is.
Oh wow! Holy shit!
'84 is that? Yeah, it was no edges. It was just plywood and P-Tex glued on.
Oh my
brand
God.
new.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Bunch of cool stuff.
Where did that come from? California?
Someone found it in a warehouse. Dow actually found it for me. He's like, this dude found a stack of boards. You want one? He took one and I took one.
Amazing.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
But
so we got a lot more to talk about. Well, let's wrap it up. And is there anyone you want to thank? Is there any shout outs you want to do?
No. Yeah, man, of course. Tons of people I want to thank. First, all the riders that got in front of my camera and sent it, because without them, obviously, I'm not shooting anything. So thanks to all those guys. Richard Newman at Concrete Powder, who was there from the beginning and gave me my start and really built my confidence to keep shooting and keep submitting, and I really got the ball rolling. So for sure, I want to thank him. Transworld Snowboarding have been there for like 20 years, so I want to thank all those guys. Rest in peace. There's been many guys that have come and gone, but it's been a great experience working there, and a great part of my life, and tons of fun traveling with all those guys. So thank you, everyone at Transworld. Bryce Knights at Thrasher definitely opened a door there for me. Grant Britton, who taught me a lot about photography, and like I said, gave me my first real skate photo. Pete Terrace for believing in Canadian surfing and opening that door for me. Derek Atella, another photographer that I worked with around here a lot. He really did teach me a lot of stuff about my camera. So definitely that was cool. And a bunch of brands too that have always helped with product. They've been awesome. So Burton, Wired Snowboards, Arc'teryx, Oakley, Vans, Lululemon, Shimoda backpacks, helping me carry my gear around and making amazing bags. Smart Wool, Gibbons Whistler, they've been great. They're also making awesome new beer, so
nice. That's
always good. I like to thank my wife and kids, putting up with all my shit and travel schedules and just me in general. And then, of course, Red Bull. Without Red Bull, snowboarding would not be where it is today. Action sports in general wouldn't be where they are today. They give back so much to what we do, whether you're a photographer, an athlete, contest promoter. If it wasn't for those guys, our industry would be a lot more dismal. So thanks to everyone at Red Bull all over the world that just keep doing awesome shit and helping us push everything that we do. So thank you. Yeah.
All right, before the shout-outs this week, I'm just going to let you guys know I love riding with my kids. It was challenging at the beginning for sure, but it was still super fun. It's been fun watching them grow into shredders that can rip pow and hit jumps and keep up with Dad. And I love you guys. All right, FNRad shout-outs this week to Scott, Nick, Tony, Jeff, Old Man Bernie, everyone from the boardroom that helped out, Eddie Wood and the entire Mount Seymour staff for pulling off the 4th annual Baked Salmon Bank Slalom. I had so much fun racing in this event. Congratulations on Dave for getting 4th place. That was super rad. Everybody was so positive. I want to thank Mel. She's always rad up there doing her thing and helping with digging. And yeah, I beat Artie. That was like my goal this year. I wanted to beat Artie and I beat him. So I'm just going to put it in the podcast here. Well, actually I can't gloat because I think the event rules, I don't just think this, I know the event rules were if you took a second run, it scrubbed your time from your first run, and I know I fell on my second run, and I know they counted my first run time. So next year I'm going to beat Artie legitimately. This year I beat him through some sort of technical difficulty with the equipment that they used, but I still won, man. I beat you, Artie. All right, be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboarding Podcast, brought to you by SIA Productions.